You have exactly 10 minutes to gather whatever you can carry and get out of my house. I stood in the marble foyer of the mansion I'd helped build, holding a 3-day-old infant in each arm while the third slept in a carrier at my feet, and stared at the man I'd spent 5 years loving with everything I had. Adrian Cole looked at me like I was a stranger. No, worse than a stranger. Like I was something inconvenient he needed to dispose of. You know what's interesting about betrayal? It rarely comes as a complete shock. There are always signs, little moments that don't quite add up, words that cut a little too deep. But we ignore them because we want to believe in the story we've told ourselves. We want to believe that love is enough, that loyalty matters, that the person we chose will choose us back. I ignored a lot of signs, and it almost destroyed me. Hey everyone, how are you doing today? I hope wherever you're watching this from, whether you're at home, on your break, trying to make it through another difficult day, I hope you're holding on. The weather here has been cold lately, which feels fitting for a story about what happens when the person who promised to keep you warm decides you're not worth the effort anymore. My name is Eden Cole. Well, it was Eden Cole. Before that, it was Eden Ashford. And before that, before I ever met Adrian, before I ever stepped foot in that mansion, I was someone else entirely. Someone powerful. Someone dangerous. Someone I'd buried so deep I'd almost forgotten she existed. This is the story of how I went from being a woman discarded like trash with 3 newborn babies in her arms, to the person who owned everything the man who threw me away ever thought was his. This is about the day I walked back into Adrian Cole's life, not as the quiet, devoted wife he'd kicked to the curb, but as the billionaire mogul who held his entire future in her hands. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I tell you about the moment Adrian fell to his knees, begging for mercy he didn't deserve, you need to understand how we got there. And if you want to hear a story about justice, about a woman who refused to stay broken, about what happens when someone underestimates you in the worst possible way, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video. Because I promise you, this story will stay with you long after it's over. But let me start from the beginning. I was 26 when I met Adrian Cole, and I'd already lived 3 lifetimes worth of experiences that he would never know about. See, what Adrian saw when he met me was a quiet, beautiful black woman working as a consultant for mid-level tech companies. Someone smart enough to hold a conversation, but not threatening. Someone who seemed grateful for his attention. Someone who looked at him like he was the most brilliant man in the room. What he didn't see was that I was running from something. Or more accurately, someone. My real name, my birth name, is Eden Ashford. My father, Jonathan Ashford, built one of the largest private equity firms in the world before he died when I was 23. He left everything to me, a portfolio worth $4.7 billion, controlling interests in 17 companies across 6 continents, and a target on my back from business partners who thought a young black woman had no right to that kind of power. They tried to take it from me. Hostile takeovers, smear campaigns, threats that became more than just professional. When someone tried to run my car off the road one night in Manhattan, I made a decision. I disappeared. I handed operational control to a trusted board, set up shell companies and holding corporations so complex that no one could trace them back to me, and I became Eden Sinclair, a freelance business consultant with an impressive resume but no real presence. I was 24 years old, and I just made myself invisible. For 2 years, I lived quietly. I worked remotely, guided my companies from the shadows, and told myself I was safe. But I was lonely. Desperately, achingly lonely. That's the state I was in when I met Adrian at a tech conference in Seattle. He was 31, charismatic in that confident way that comes from never really being told no. He'd just launched a startup, some kind of AI-driven logistics platform that he was convinced would revolutionize supply chain management. He was looking for investors, and he pitched his idea to anyone who would listen. I listened because I was bored and because he was handsome and because I'd spent 2 years hiding from human connection. I didn't invest. Not as myself. But I was intrigued. You're different from everyone else here, he said when he found me at the hotel bar later that night. You actually understood what I was talking about. Most people just nod and pretend. Most people are pretending a lot of things, I said. Not you, though. I can tell. You're authentic. I almost laughed. I was the furthest thing from authentic. I was a billionaire pretending to be nobody, a woman hiding from her own life. But he looked at me with such genuine interest, such real appreciation, that I wanted it to be true. I wanted to be the person he saw when he looked at me. We started dating 3 days later. Adrian was brilliant, I'll give him that. His platform idea was actually solid. With the right execution and capital, it could work. He worked 16-hour days, survived on coffee and ambition, and talked about the future like it was something he could will into existence through sheer determination. I'm going to build something that matters, he told me on our 5th date. I'm going to prove that I'm more than just another tech bro with a pitch deck. I'm going to change the industry. I believe you, I said. And I did. But more than that, I wanted to help him. Not as Eden Ashford, the billionaire heiress. As Eden Sinclair, the woman who loved him. 6 months into our relationship, Adrian's startup was failing. He'd burned through his initial funding, and investors were backing out. He was 3 weeks from having to shut everything down, and I watched him slowly break under the weight of that impending failure. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, he said one night, his head in his hands. The platform works. The tech is solid. But no one wants to take a chance on me. I made a decision that night. A decision that would change everything. Through one of my shell companies, a venture capital firm called Meridian Holdings, I arranged for Adrian to receive $15 million in funding. The terms were generous. The oversight was minimal. The paperwork was handled by lawyers who would never connect it back to me. Adrian thought he'd finally caught a break. He thought his pitch had landed with the right investor. He never knew that the woman he was sleeping next to every night was the one who'd saved his company. I told myself I was helping the man I loved. I told myself it was romantic, supporting him from the shadows. I told myself it didn't matter that he didn't know. The lies we tell ourselves are always the most dangerous ones. With that funding, Adrian's company exploded. The platform worked exactly as he'd promised. Within a year, he'd secured contracts with 3 major retailers. Within 2 years, he was being featured in Forbes and TechCrunch. Within 3 years, Cole Logistics was valued at $800 million. And through it all, I was there. Not as his equal, but as his support system. The understanding girlfriend who listened to his problems. The smart consultant who offered advice he could use. The beautiful woman on his arm at events who made him look good. I watched my ideas get implemented without credit. I watched my business strategies become his innovations. I watched him become a billionaire using the foundation I'd secretly built for him. And I told myself it was fine. We were a team. We were building a life together. What did it matter whose name was on the company? We got married when I was 28. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. My mother was there, the only person who knew my real identity and who'd begged me for years to tell Adrian the truth. You can't build a marriage on lies, baby, she whispered as she adjusted my veil. I'm not lying. I'm just not telling him everything. That's the same thing. But I didn't listen. Because Adrian loved me. He chose me. He stood at that altar and promised to love me in sickness and health, for richer or poorer. He just never imagined I was the richer one. The first 2 years of marriage were good. Adrian was building Cole Logistics into an empire, and I was his constant companion. I attended every event. I smiled for every camera. I played the role of the supportive wife who was just so proud of her brilliant husband. Behind the scenes, through Meridian Holdings and my other companies, I was still guiding things. Connecting Adrian with the right partners. Ensuring his deals went through. Smoothing obstacles before he even knew they existed. I was the invisible hand making his success possible, and he had no idea. When I got pregnant at 30, Adrian was ecstatic. We were financially secure, or so he thought. We were happy, or so I believed. A baby would complete our perfect life. Except I wasn't having a baby. I was having 3. The ultrasound technician's face when she found the 3rd heartbeat is something I'll never forget. "Well," she said, moving the wand across my belly, "you're definitely going to need a bigger nursery. Triplets. 3 babies. 3 lives that would depend entirely on us." Adrian's reaction was complicated. He smiled and said all the right things, but I could see the panic in his eyes. 3 babies meant more responsibility, more time away from work, more focus on family instead of empire building. "We'll make it work," I assured him. "We have help. We have resources." What I didn't say was that those resources were primarily mine. The house we lived in? Purchased through a holding company I controlled, though Adrian thought it was his. The investments that had multiplied our wealth? Guided by my financial team. The comfortable life he thought he'd built? Constructed by me from the shadows. I was 7 months pregnant, massive and uncomfortable, when I started noticing changes in Adrian. He was staying later at work, taking more trips, being vague about his schedule. When I asked questions, he got defensive. "I'm building something here, Eden. I can't just take time off because you're feeling needy." Needy. I was pregnant with his children and asking for basic communication, and I was needy. His friends started coming around more. Brett, his college buddy who'd never liked me. Sven, his new CFO who looked at me like I was furniture. Dominic, the investor who'd made it clear he thought Adrian had married down. They'd sit in our living room, drinking expensive scotch, talking about Adrian's future like I wasn't even there. "You're on the verge of breaking into the billionaire club," Dominic said one night. "But you need to be strategic about your image. The wife, the kids, it all matters." "Eden's great," Adrian said, and I felt a small warmth at the defense. "Eden's fine," Brett corrected. "But is she the right fit for where you're going? These circles you're trying to break into, they expect a certain type of wife." I was 8 feet away, visibly pregnant, and they were discussing whether I was good enough for my own husband. Adrian didn't tell them to leave. He didn't defend me. He just refilled his glass and changed the subject. That night, lying in bed next to him, I felt the babies moving inside me and wondered what I was bringing them into. At 8 months pregnant, Adrian started missing doctor's appointments. First one, then another, then all of them. "I'll be at the next one," he'd promise. He never was. I went into labor 3 weeks early, alone in our massive house, because Adrian was in Singapore on a business trip. He'd known my due date. He'd known I was having triplets, which meant early delivery was likely. He went anyway. My mother drove me to the hospital. She held my hand through 17 hours of labor. She was the first person to hold each of my babies when they were born. Adrian arrived 36 hours later, still in his suit from the flight. "Sorry I missed it," he said, holding our son Caleb with the awkwardness of someone who'd never held an infant. The deal couldn't wait. Our daughters, Morlin and Zara, lay in their bassinets, hours old, and their father was explaining why a business deal was more important than their birth. "It's okay," I said, because that's what I'd been trained to say. "You're here now." But it wasn't okay. And he wasn't really there. We brought the triplets home 3 days later to a house full of expensive baby equipment and empty of emotional support. Adrian hired a night nurse and a day nurse and a nanny, which I appreciated, but what I needed was him. "I can't take time off right now," he said when I asked him to stay home for at least the first week. "We're in the middle of negotiations for the European expansion." The European expansion that I'd orchestrated through my companies. The deals that I'd made sure would go through. He was too busy with my own work to help me with our children. The first 2 weeks home were a blur of feeding, changing, crying, and exhaustion so profound I sometimes forgot my own name. The nurses helped, but I was trying to establish breastfeeding with 3 infants, which meant I was up every 2 hours around the clock. Adrian slept in the guest room so someone could be well rested. When the babies were 3 weeks old, I asked him to watch them for 2 hours so I could sleep. I have a conference call. It's Sunday. Business doesn't stop for weekends, Eden. You know that. I knew that better than he did. I was running multiple billion-dollar companies from my phone while simultaneously trying to keep 3 infants alive. But I was doing it invisibly, so it didn't count. The shift happened gradually, then all at once. Adrian started making comments about how much time the babies took. How the house was always messy. How I never had time for him anymore. "You're different now," he said one night, looking at me with something like disappointment. "You used to be fun. Interesting. Now all you talk about is the babies." I was 6 weeks postpartum, running on 3 hours of sleep, and he was criticizing me for being focused on our children. "They're 6 weeks old, Adrian. They need me. I need you too. But apparently I'm not a priority anymore." I stared at him, holding Moreland, who'd been crying for an hour straight, and felt something crack inside me. His friends started staying over later. The drinking increased. I'd hear them in the living room, talking about Adrian's success, his future, his potential, and how he needed to be careful not to let family obligations hold him back. "Look at Harrison," Brett said one night, loud enough for me to hear from the nursery. "He's crushing it since his divorce. No distractions. Just pure focus." "I'm not getting divorced," Adrian said. But he didn't sound certain. He sounded like he was considering his options. When the triplets were 2 months old, I overheard a conversation that changed everything. I'd finally gotten all 3 babies down for a nap at the same time, a miracle that happened maybe once a week. I was heading downstairs to possibly, shower for the first time in 2 days when I heard Adrian on the phone in his office. I know. It's more complicated than I thought it would be." Pause. 3 babies, Mom. 3. The house is chaos. She's always exhausted. I can barely get her attention anymore. Pause. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe I rushed into this. I stood outside his door, my heart pounding, listening to my husband tell his mother that marrying me might have been a mistake. The business is taking off. I'm getting offers to speak at conferences, invitations to join boards. But I can't bring Eden to these things. She's either too tired or covered in spit up or dealing with the babies. Pause. I just wonder sometimes what my life would look like if I'd waited. If I'd chosen differently. I walked back upstairs, got in the shower, and cried as quietly as I could so I wouldn't wake the babies. That night, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I logged into my private system and checked on my companies. Meridian Holdings, Ashford Global Properties, Phoenix Investment Group. All the business entities I controlled, the billions of dollars in assets that existed in a world Adrian knew nothing about. I was tired. I was postpartum. I was emotionally devastated. But I wasn't helpless. I'd just forgotten that for a while. I started paying attention. Really paying attention. Adrian was pulling away. Staying later at work. Taking trips he didn't need to take. Being vague about his schedule. And his friends, those men who sat in my living room drinking my alcohol, were encouraging it. When the triplets were 3 months old, Adrian came home drunk at 2 in the morning. I was up feeding Moreland and Zara, and he stumbled in smelling like expensive whiskey and perfume that wasn't mine. "Where were you?" "Networking event. Important people. You wouldn't understand. Try me." He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Contempt. "Look at yourself, Eden. You're in sweatpants with baby vomit on your shoulder. You haven't done your hair in weeks. You're nothing like the woman I married." I was exactly like the woman he married. I was just also a mother to his 3 children. "I'm taking care of our babies. Our babies are all you care about anymore. What about me? What about my needs? I'm building an empire and my wife can't even be bothered to look presentable. I should have screamed at him. I should have thrown him out right then. But I was holding our daughters and I didn't want to wake them, so I just said quietly, "Get out of my sight." He slept in the guest room. And then he slept there the next night. And the next. Until it became permanent. We were 4 months into parenthood and my marriage was disintegrating. I started investigating. Not actively, I didn't have time for that. But I had people I could call. People who owed the real me favors. Within 2 days, I had a file on my phone detailing everything Adrian had been doing for the past 2 months. The business dinners that were actually dates. The conferences where he shared a hotel room with his assistant. The apartment he'd rented downtown for his private time. My husband was cheating on me. While I was home with his 3 infant children, exhausted and vulnerable, and trying to keep our family together, he was building a life that didn't include me. I could have confronted him then. I could have left. I could have revealed who I really was and destroyed him financially. But I didn't. Because I still had hope. I still believed that maybe he'd come back to himself. That maybe we could fix this. Hope is a luxury that costs everything. The triplets were 3.5 months old when everything fell apart. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were when the nanny had off, so I was alone with all 3 babies. They'd been fussy all day. I think they were going through a growth spurt or maybe teething early. Morlan had been crying for hours. Caleb had a slight fever. Zara had spit up so many times I'd changed my shirt 4 times. I was exhausted. Overwhelmed. Running on maybe 2 hours of sleep total. And I was still working, still managing my companies from my phone during rare quiet moments, still making sure the empire I'd built kept running. Adrian came home at 6, which was early for him lately. He had 3 of his friends with him, Brett, Dominic, and Sven. They were dressed in expensive suits, clearly coming from somewhere important. I was in the living room, wearing old yoga pants and one of Adrian's t-shirts, trying to soothe Morlan while Caleb and Zara cried in their bouncer seats. The house was a mess, toys everywhere, bottles in the sink, laundry that needed to be done. I looked up as they walked in, hoping maybe Adrian would help with the babies. Instead, he looked at me with disgust. Jesus, Eden. This place is a disaster. I've been alone with 3 babies all day. What did you expect? Brett laughed. Actually laughed. This is what your life has become? Man, I die. Dominic surveyed the scene with barely concealed contempt. This is exactly what I was talking about, Adrian. This isn't the image of a billionaire CEO. I know, Adrian said quietly. I know. Something in his tone made my blood run cold. Can you guys give me a minute? Adrian said to his friends. They retreated to the kitchen, but I could feel them watching. Listening. Adrian walked over to where I stood holding Morlan. He didn't reach for her. Didn't offer to help. Just looked at both of us with something I can only describe as resentment. This isn't working, Eden. What isn't working? My voice was steady, but my heart was racing. This. Us. This whole situation. He gestured at the babies, at the messy room, at me. I can't do this anymore. Can't do what? Be a father? Be a husband. I can't have my life held back by all of this. He said this, like our children were a burden he hadn't chosen. I'm on the verge of something huge. Coal Logistics is about to break into the billionaire valuation. I'm getting offers to speak at Davos, to join elite boards. And I can't bring you to these things. I can't have my house looking like this. I can't have my wife looking like that. Looking like what? Like someone who's been taking care of your children. Looking like you've given up. Looking like you don't care about me anymore. Looking like a... He paused, and I saw him choose his next words carefully. Like a burden. The word hit me like a physical blow. A burden. You know what I mean. Say it, Adrian. Say what you really mean. His jaw tightened. Fine. You're not the woman I married. That woman was polished, interesting, helpful to my career. Now you're just this. And I can't afford this right now. Morlin was crying in my arms. Caleb and Zara were crying in their seats. And I was standing in the middle of the destruction of my marriage, watching the man I'd loved and supported and secretly funded for 5 years tell me I was a burden. What are you saying? He took a breath, and I saw the decision in his eyes before he spoke it. I want you out. You and the babies. I need my space back. I need my life back. The room spun. You want us out? This is our home. These are your children. This is MY home, he corrected. My name is on the deed. My money paid for it. Your money, I thought. Your money that I gave you. Your success that I built. Your life that I made possible. But I didn't say it. Not yet. Where exactly do you expect me to go with 3 infants? I don't know, Eden. Your mother's? A hotel? Anywhere but here. I can't think with all this noise and chaos. I can't work. I can't build my future with all of this dragging me down. All of this is your family. And they're holding me back. His voice rose, and all 3 babies cried harder. Don't you get it? I'm this close to everything I've ever wanted, and I can't get there with you and 3 screaming kids in my way. Brett appeared in the doorway. You need help, ma'am? I need her gone, Adrian said, not taking his eyes off me. I looked at my husband, this man I'd loved, this man I'd helped build from nothing, this man whose children I was holding, and I saw a stranger. Someone who'd convinced himself that his success was entirely his own. Someone who'd forgotten every late night I'd listened to his fears, every connection I'd made for him, every piece of advice I'd given that had saved his company. Someone who had no idea who I really was. You have 10 minutes, Adrian said coldly. Pack whatever you can carry and get out. It's 8 o'clock at night. I have 3 babies. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. Not his problem. His children, 3 months old, were not his problem. I looked down at Morlin in my arms, her tiny face red from crying. At Caleb and Zara in their seats, completely dependent and vulnerable. And I felt something shift inside me. The quiet, supportive wife who'd accepted scraps of attention and made excuses for bad behavior? She was done. The powerful woman I'd been before I met Adrian, the billionaire I'd buried to play a role? She was waking up. And she was furious. Fine, I said quietly. I'll go. Adrian looked surprised, like he'd expected me to beg. Good. But Adrian? You're going to regret this. He laughed. Actually laughed. Regret what? Freeing myself from a burden? I doubt it. I turned to gather the baby's things, my mind already working. I had resources Adrian couldn't imagine. I had power he'd never suspected. I had backup plans and contingency plans and a whole network of people loyal to the real me. But first, I had to get my babies somewhere safe. I called my mother as I packed a bag with shaking hands, babies crying all around me. Baby? It's late. What's wrong? Adrian's kicking us out. Can you meet me at the Belmont Hotel downtown? The Belmont was one of mine, though no one knew that. I owned the chain through Phoenix Investment Group. They'd have a suite ready within minutes. He's what? Eden, no. I don't have time to explain. Can you meet me there in an hour? I'm leaving now. I packed what I could fit in 2 bags, clothes for the babies, diapers, formula, the essentials. I strapped Morlin into her carrier, then Caleb, then Zara. 3 babies, 2 bags, and whatever dignity I had left. Adrian watched from the doorway, Brett and Dominic flanking him like bodyguards. Leave your key, he said. I pulled the house key off my keychain and dropped it on the marble floor. The same marble floor I'd chosen when we'd bought this house. The same floor that was technically owned by one of my holding companies, though Adrian had no idea. Anything else? I asked. Yeah, don't come back. I looked at him one last time, memorizing his face. The man who just kicked out his wife and 3 infant children because we were holding him back. You built all of this on your own? I asked quietly. You're absolutely sure about that? What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just wanted to make sure you remember those words. I walked out of that house with my 3 babies and 2 bags, leaving behind the life I'd built and the man I'd loved. Brett called after me. You should be thanking him. He's setting you free from being a burden. I didn't turn around. I just kept walking to my car, a modest sedan, perfect for the role I'd been playing. As I drove away, buckling 3 car seats into the back, I made a call. Malcolm? It's Eden. Yes, the real Eden. I need you to activate the full network. Every company, every asset, every connection. I paused, watching my babies in the rearview mirror. It's time to stop hiding. Is this about coal logistics? Malcolm Chadwick was my head of security and the only person besides my mother who'd known where I was all these years. It's about making sure Adrian Cole understands exactly what he just threw away. Say the word, and we'll move. Not yet. First, I need to make sure my babies are safe. Then, I smiled, cold and determined. Then we dismantle everything he thinks he built. Piece by piece. I pulled up to the Belmont Hotel 40 minutes later. The manager himself came out to help me with the babies and bags, as I'd known he would. The penthouse suite was ready, fully stocked with everything 3 infants could need. My mother arrived 20 minutes after that, bursting through the door with fear and fury in her eyes. Tell me everything. So I did. I told her about Adrian's coldness, his cheating, his contempt. I told her about his friends encouraging him to see his family as a burden. And I told her about the moment he'd kicked us out. That man, she said, holding Caleb against her shoulder, has no idea what he's just done. No, I agreed. But he's going to find out. I spent that first night in the hotel feeding my babies, changing them, soothing them to sleep one by one. And when they were finally all asleep, I sat down at the desk with my laptop and started making calls. To my lawyers. To my board members. To my security team. To every connection I had in the business world that Adrian had been trying so hard to break into. I'm back, I said on each call. And I'm done hiding. By morning, the machinery was in motion. Eden Ashford, billionaire heiress, disappeared 3 years ago, was about to resurface. And the man who'd just kicked her out was about to learn exactly what it meant to betray someone with the power to destroy everything he thought he owned. But I didn't want to destroy him quickly. I wanted him to understand, slowly and painfully, exactly what he'd lost. I wanted justice. For myself. For Morlin. For Caleb. For Zara. And I was going to get it. The first week after Adrian kicked us out, I established a routine that would have been impossible for the woman he thought I was. I moved us from the hotel to one of my properties, a penthouse in the Riverside Tower that I owned through Ashford Global Properties. Adrian didn't know the building existed in my portfolio. He didn't know I had a portfolio. The penthouse had been sitting empty for 2 years, held as an investment, and now it became our sanctuary. 5 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a nursery that I had professionally outfitted within 48 hours. My mother moved into one of the guest rooms to help with the triplets. I hired a team, not just nannies, but a proper support staff. People I'd vetted through my security company. People who understood discretion. Because I was about to step back into my real life, and I needed my babies protected while I did it. You're sure about this? My mother asked on day 3, watching me get dressed in clothes I hadn't worn in years. A tailored suit. Heels. The armor of a woman who commanded billions. I'm sure. I adjusted my jacket, looking at myself in the mirror. I'd let my hair grow out during my time as Eden Sinclair, worn it natural and simple. Now I had it styled professionally, embracing the crown I'd been hiding. He kicked out a woman he thought was helpless. He's about to meet someone very different. What about the babies? I looked over at Morlin, Caleb, and Zara, sleeping peacefully in their bassinets. 3 months old. So tiny. So completely dependent on me. Everything I do from this point forward is for them, I said. Adrian threw them away like they were nothing. I'm going to make sure they grow up knowing their mother is someone who fights back. That afternoon, I had my first meeting in 3 years as Eden Ashford. Malcolm Chadwick picked me up in an armored SUV, the kind of security I'd had before I disappeared. He'd aged a bit, more gray in his hair, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. "Welcome back," he said as I slid into the back seat. "We've missed you." "How bad is it?" "The company's. Your board has been solid. Profits are up across all sectors. Meridian Holdings has a portfolio value of $8.2 billion. Phoenix Investment Group is sitting at $6.7 billion. Ashford Global Properties is valued at $4.1 billion. You've actually made money while you were gone." I'd known this, of course. I'd been monitoring everything from my phone. But hearing it out loud, in the context of what Adrian had just done, made it real. I was worth approximately $19 billion. And my husband had kicked me out for being a burden. "And coal logistics?" I asked. Malcolm's expression darkened. "That's interesting. Very interesting." "How so?" "Your husband's company is valued at $890 million right now, and he's about to close a deal that would push him over the billion mark. But here's the thing. When I started digging into his financial structure like you asked, I found something. Which is, do you remember that initial $15 million you gave him through Meridian 5 years ago? Of course. The terms you set up gave Meridian Holdings a 23% equity stake in coal logistics, with conversion rights that could increase that to 35% under certain conditions. I'd forgotten about that. I'd been so focused on just helping Adrian that I hadn't paid attention to the standard terms my lawyers had included. Meaning you own a third of your husband's company. And he has no idea. I sat back in my seat, processing this. I owned a third of coal logistics. The company Adrian had just claimed was entirely his. The success he'd said was being held back by me. I'd built it. I'd funded it. And I owned a significant piece of it. What are the conversion conditions? I asked. Change in control provisions. If Adrian sells the company, or takes it public, or brings on a new major investor, Meridian's stake automatically converts to the higher percentage. And you get board seats. So if he closes this deal he's working on, you become the largest single shareholder in coal logistics, with voting rights. I smiled. Actually smiled. Keep digging. I want to know everything about this deal. Who's involved, what the terms are, where the money's coming from. Already on it. The SUV pulled up to a building I knew well, the headquarters of Meridian Holdings. My company. My legacy. The place I'd built with my father before he died. I hadn't been here in 3 years. But the security team recognized me immediately. They nodded as I passed, maintaining their professional demeanor, but I could see the surprise in their eyes. Eden Ashford was back. The elevator took me to the top floor, where my executive team was waiting in the conference room. 6 people who'd been running my empire in my absence, who'd kept my secrets and managed my billions and waited for the day I'd return. They stood when I entered. "Sit," I said, taking my place at the head of the table. "Thank you all for maintaining discretion during my absence. I know it hasn't been easy." "It's good to have you back," said Patricia Whitmore, my CFO. She was in her 50s, brilliant with numbers, and had been my father's right hand before becoming mine. "Though I have to ask, does this mean you're resuming active control?" "Yes. Effective immediately, I'm back. Which means we have work to do." I spent the next 2 hours being briefed on everything I'd missed while I was playing housewife. Acquisitions my board had approved. Investments that had paid off. Opportunities they'd been holding for my return. "There's one more thing," said Sven Webb, my head of corporate development. Not the same Sven who was Adrian's CFO, I'd checked. "We've been approached about investing in several tech companies. One of them is coal logistics." Adrian approached Meridian? Not directly. He doesn't know Meridian is your company. But his CFO reached out about potential strategic investment. They're looking to raise capital for international expansion. What did you tell them? That we'd need to review their financials and corporate structure. Standard due diligence. We've been stalling until you came back. Adrian was actively seeking investment from my company without knowing it was mine. The irony was almost too perfect. Set up a meeting, I said. I want to see their proposal. You're going to meet with them? Not me. Not yet. Send Patricia and Sven. Standard investor meeting. But I want to know everything. What they're planning, what they need, where they're vulnerable. Because I was going to need that information. Not to destroy Adrian, not yet, but to understand exactly what he'd built on the foundation I'd given him. That night, I went home to my babies. Fed them. Changed them. Rocked them to sleep one by one while my mother made dinner and told me I was doing too much. You just had triplets 3 months ago, baby. You should be resting, not running business empires. I've been running business empires from my phone while nursing triplets, I pointed out. At least now I have proper help. You know what I mean. Adrian, just don't. I cut her off, holding Zara against my shoulder. Don't say his name right now. Not while I'm with them. Because the rage I felt when I thought about what Adrian had done to me, to our children, was so intense that I couldn't let it touch these moments. These quiet moments of feeding my babies and holding them close were sacred. The anger could wait. But it was there. Growing. Sharpening itself into something precise and deadly. Over the next 2 weeks, I rebuilt my public presence carefully. Eden Ashford wasn't someone who could just reappear without questions. So I controlled the narrative. First, a carefully placed story in the Wall Street Journal. Billionaire heiress Eden Ashford resurfaces after 3-year absence. The article was vague on details, but confirmed I was alive, well, and resuming control of my family's business empire. Within hours, my phone, my real phone, the one connected to my actual identity, was flooded with calls. Business associates. Old friends. Reporters wanting the full story. I ignored most of them. But I returned a few strategic calls. Let certain people know I was back. Reminded them of who I was and what I controlled. The business world has a short memory, but $19 billion makes people remember quickly. Second, I started making moves. Small ones at first. Meridian Holdings acquired a logistics software company that happened to be one of Cole Logistics' main competitors. Phoenix Investment Group bought out a manufacturing contract that Adrian had been negotiating for. Nothing obvious. Nothing that would point directly to me. Just business decisions that happened to make Adrian's life slightly more difficult. I wanted him to feel pressure. To sense something shifting in his world. But not to know what or why. Not yet. You're playing with him, Malcolm observed during one of our security briefings. Like a cat with a mouse. I'm gathering information, I corrected. There's a difference. Is there? I looked at him. He threw me and 3 babies out of our home because we were inconvenient. He cheated on me while I was home with his newborns. He built his entire success on my foundation and convinced himself it was all his own work. So yes, Malcolm, I'm playing with him. And I'm going to enjoy every second of it. Malcolm smiled. Your father would be proud. My father would have destroyed Adrian the first time he disrespected me. True. But he also would have been proud that you're being strategic about it. The meeting between Meridian Holdings and Cole Logistics happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I watched via secure video feed from my penthouse while Patricia and Sven sat across from Adrian and his team. I'd seen Adrian on video calls plenty of times during our marriage. But watching him now in his element, performing for investors, was different. He was confident. Polished. Convincing. He was selling them on his vision for Cole Logistics. The international expansion. The new AI integration. The strategic partnerships he'd developed. Partnerships I'd arranged through my network. Technology I'd connected him with. Expansion plans I'd helped strategize during late-night conversations he'd probably forgotten. Cole Logistics is positioned to dominate the global logistics market, Adrian said, his voice full of conviction. We've built something revolutionary here. Something that's going to change the industry. Tell me about your initial funding, Patricia asked, her voice neutral. How did you get started? Strategic angel investors who believed in the vision, Adrian said smoothly. I was fortunate to connect with the right people at the right time. The right people. Meaning me. The wife he'd thrown away. And your current equity structure? I maintain 62% ownership. My executive team has 8%. The rest is split among early investors who've been bought down over time. Wrong. He maintained 62% because I owned 23% through Meridian, and he had no idea. The math he was presenting didn't account for my stake. Sven caught it too. I could see it in the slight pause before he asked his next question. And these early investors, would they support bringing on a major strategic partner? I'd have to review the shareholder agreement, Adrian's CFO said. But in general, yes. We're aligned on growth objectives. They had no idea one of those early investors was sitting in the room. Or watching from a penthouse across the city, nursing a baby while planning their downfall. The meeting lasted 90 minutes. Patricia and Sven asked all the right questions, probed all the right weaknesses, made Adrian feel like Meridian was seriously interested. We'll review the materials and get back to you within 2 weeks, Patricia said at the end. I watched Adrian's face light up. He thought he'd nailed it. Thought he was about to land a major investor that would push him into the billionaire club. He had no idea he was negotiating with his own wife. After the meeting, Patricia called me. Well, he's convincing. I'll give him that. But the financials are interesting. How so? Coal logistics is profitable, but not as profitable as he's making it seem. He's been inflating projections. And there are some expenses that don't quite add up. What kind of expenses? Personal expenses being run through the company. A downtown apartment. Entertainment. Travel that doesn't match his meeting schedule. He's been using company funds as his personal bank account. The apartment where he'd been cheating on me. Paid for with company money. With my money, technically, since I owned part of the company. Document everything, I said. I want a full forensic accounting. You're building a case. I'm protecting my investment. That night, I couldn't sleep. The babies were finally on a decent schedule, only waking up twice a night now instead of every 2 hours, but I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking. Adrian had no idea who I really was. Even after 5 years of marriage, for years of me being his closest advisor, he'd never suspected that the quiet, supportive wife had been the actual power behind everything he'd built. What did that say about him? That he'd been so convinced of his own brilliance that he couldn't see the truth right in front of him? Or what did it say about me? That I'd hidden myself so completely, made myself so small, that even the person closest to me couldn't see who I really was? Maybe it said something about both of us. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. I heard you were back. Drinks sometime? Tyler. Tyler Richardson. We dated briefly before I disappeared, before I met Adrian. He was old money, tech investor, connected to everyone who mattered in our world. I'd avoided him after I vanished because he would have recognized me as Eden Ashford, and I'd been trying to be invisible. But I wasn't invisible anymore. I typed back, how did you get this number? I know people. So, drinks. I hesitated. Then thought about Adrian, probably at his downtown apartment with whoever he was seeing now, not even thinking about his children or the wife he'd discarded. Friday. 8 p.m., you pick the place. I know just the spot. It's good to have you back, Eden. I put the phone down and looked over at the 3 bassinets next to my bed. Morlan was making soft sleep sounds. Caleb had his tiny fist near his mouth. Zara was perfectly still, peaceful. Your father thinks he's going to become a billionaire, I whispered to them. He thinks he's going to join the elite circles he's always dreamed about. He has no idea that your mother already sits at the top of those circles. No idea that everything he's reaching for, I already have. Morlan stirred slightly, like she was listening. And when the time is right, when I've gathered all the information I need, he's going to find out. Not because I'm going to tell him, but because I'm going to show him exactly what he threw away. Friday came. I spent the day with the triplets, gave them their evening feeding, and then got ready like I was preparing for battle. Because in a way, I was. I wore a black dress that cost more than the monthly rent on most apartments. Heels that added 3 inches to my height. Jewelry that was understated but unmistakably expensive. I looked like money. Like power. Like someone you didn't cross. I looked like myself for the first time in years. Malcolm drove me to the Restaurant Noir, one of the most exclusive places in the city. The kind of place where you needed connections just to get a reservation. Tyler was waiting at a private table in the back. He stood when he saw me, and I saw the flash of appreciation in his eyes. "Eden Ashford," he said, kissing my cheek. "I have to admit, when I heard you were back, I didn't quite believe it." Believe it. I sat down, accepting the wine he'd already ordered. "I heard you've been busy while I was away." "Not as busy as you, apparently. Word is you've been managing your empire from the shadows." "That's impressive." "Word travels fast." "In our world?" "Always." He studied me over his wine glass. "So, are you going to tell me where you've been?" "Living quietly. Managing my investments. Staying out of the spotlight. For 3 years. I needed a break." "From $19 billion? Most people don't take breaks from that." I smiled. "I'm not most people." We talked for 2 hours. About business. About the tech industry. About opportunities and investments and all the things that people at our level discussed. And then Tyler asked, "So, is it true you're married?" I paused, my wine glass halfway to my lips. "How did you know that?" "Like I said, I know people." Eden Ashford disappeared, but Eden Sinclair popped up married to Adrian Cole about 3 years ago. It wasn't hard to connect the dots once I started looking. "You investigated me?" "I was worried about you. You vanished. I wanted to make sure you were okay." He leaned forward. "Are you okay?" I thought about how to answer that. Was I okay? I'd just been thrown out by my husband. I was raising triplets alone. I was rebuilding my public identity while planning to systematically dismantle the man I'd once loved. "I'm better than okay," I said finally. "I'm exactly where I need to be." "And Adrian Cole? Is he where he needs to be?" "He thinks he is. He's about to find out differently." Tyler smiled, understanding immediately. "He doesn't know who you are, does he?" "Not yet." "Eden, you've been married to this man for years. You have children with him. And he has no idea you're a billionaire. He thinks I'm nobody. Someone who is lucky to marry him. Someone who should be grateful for the life he gave me." What an idiot. I laughed. Actually laughed. Yes. Yes, he is. "So, what's the play here? Are you going to divorce him and take half of everything?" "He doesn't have half of anything worth taking. Most of what he has, I gave him." I swirled my wine. "No, I'm going to let him keep climbing toward the success he thinks he's building. And then I'm going to show him that he was never climbing at all. He was standing on my shoulders the entire time." "That's cold." "He kicked me and our 3-month-old triplets out of our home because we were holding him back." "I'm being merciful." Tyler reached across the table and took my hand. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry he did that to you. You deserve better." "I know. That's why I'm taking it." We finished dinner, and Tyler walked me to my car where Malcolm was waiting. "Let's do this again," Tyler said. "I've missed having you in my world. Your world is my world. I'm just done pretending it isn't." I got in the SUV and Malcolm pulled away from the curb. I checked my phone and saw a text from my mother. "All 3 babies are asleep. It's a miracle. How was dinner?" I typed back, "Productive. Coming home now." But Malcolm wasn't driving toward my penthouse. He was heading in the opposite direction. "Where are we going?" "You asked me to tell you if anything interesting happened with Adrian Cole." "And?" "He's at his downtown apartment right now. With company." My jaw tightened. "Show me." Malcolm pulled out his tablet and showed me surveillance footage. Adrian entering his apartment building, the one being paid for with company funds, with a woman. Young, beautiful, blonde. Everything I supposedly wasn't anymore. I watched my husband put his hand on her lower back as they entered the elevator. Watched him lean in and kiss her neck. Who is she? Natasha Bennett, 26. Marketing consultant. She's been working with Coal Logistics for about 6 months. 6 months. He'd been cheating on me since before I got pregnant. Keep watching her, I said, my voice cold. I want to know everything. Already on it. We drove past the apartment building. I looked up at the lit windows and wondered if Adrian ever thought about his children. If he ever felt even a moment of guilt for what he'd done. Probably not. Men like Adrian, men who convinced themselves their success was entirely self-made, who looked at the people who helped them as tools rather than partners, didn't feel guilt. They felt entitled. But entitlement was fragile. And I was about to show him just how fragile. When I got home, my mother was in the living room reading. How are they? I asked, checking on the sleeping triplets. Perfect angels. All 3 of them went down at the same time. That never happens. I know. I think they sensed you needed a break. She looked at me carefully. How was dinner really? Tyler Richardson asked about Adrian. He'd figured out who I was married to. What did you tell him? The truth. That Adrian has no idea who I really am. And that I'm going to make sure he finds out in the most devastating way possible. My mother sighed. Baby, I understand you're hurt. I understand you're angry. But don't let revenge consume you. You have 3 children who need their mother present. I'm doing this for them. So they grow up knowing their mother didn't just accept being thrown away. So they know that when someone treats you like you're worthless, you show them exactly how wrong they are. Just be careful. Revenge has a way of costing more than we expect. I kissed her cheek. I'm always careful. I've been hiding a $19 billion empire for 3 years. I know how to be strategic. That night, lying in bed with my phone, I reviewed everything Malcolm had sent me. Financial records showing Adrian's personal expenses running through the company. Photos of him with Natasha going back months. Evidence of the lies he'd told me while I was pregnant, while I was in labor, while I was home alone with our newborns. And I thought about the bigger picture. Adrian was negotiating with my company for investment. He was using my money, the money from my equity stake, to fund his lifestyle. He was building his future on a foundation I'd created. He thought he was close to becoming a billionaire. Thought he was going to break into the elite circles he'd always dreamed about. He had no idea those circles already knew me. That I'd been part of them since birth. That the people he was trying to impress were people who'd watched me grow up. In 2 weeks, Meridian would give him an answer about the investment. I'd already decided what that answer would be. We'd invest. We'd give him exactly what he wanted. And then, slowly, methodically, I'd make sure he understood what it meant to betray someone who'd given him everything. But first, I had a few more moves to make. I sent an email to Patricia, accept the Coal Logistics proposal. But I want strict terms. Board oversight. Financial transparency. And I want a clause that allows us to call the investment if there's any evidence of corporate malfeasance. Because I was going to find that evidence. I was going to document every misuse of company funds, every lie to investors, every corner Adrian had cut on his way to the top. And when I had enough, when I'd built an unassailable case, I was going to activate the clause and take control of the company he thought was his. But that would come later. For now, I needed him to be confident, successful, convinced that everything was finally going his way. Because the higher he climbed, the farther he'd fall. And I was going to make sure the fall destroyed him. The call came on a Wednesday morning while I was feeding Caleb. Patricia's voice was professional, but I could hear the satisfaction underneath. Adrian Cole just signed the investment agreement. Meridian Holdings is now officially a major investor in Coal Logistics. $20 million in exchange for expanded equity and board representation. I shifted Caleb to my other arm, watching his tiny mouth work as he ate. And he has no idea about the conversion clause? His lawyers reviewed everything. They even flagged it. But Adrian overruled them. He was so eager to close the deal that he signed anyway. He actually said, and I quote, "I'm not worried about hypothetical scenarios. This company is solid." Famous last words. There's more. The contract includes quarterly financial reviews and mandatory disclosure of any significant corporate expenses. Which means I'm going to see exactly how he's been spending company money. The apartment. The girlfriend. All of it. All of it. First review is in 30 days. I looked down at Caleb, his eyes closed in contentment, completely trusting. Thank you, Patricia. Keep me updated. After I hung up, I sat there for a long moment. Adrian had just given me the keys to his kingdom without realizing it. In his desperation to reach that billionaire valuation, to prove himself to the elite circles he so desperately wanted to join, he'd handed control to the very person he'd thrown away. My mother came in with Moreland. Was that about the investment? He signed. Meridian is officially part of Cole Logistics. And he still doesn't know? He has no idea he just made his wife his largest single shareholder. She sat down across from me. Eden, baby, I have to ask. What's the endgame here? You expose him, take the company, ruin him financially. Then what? Then my children never have to wonder if they were worth fighting for. Then Adrian Cole learns that you can't build an empire on someone else's back and expect them to stay silent when you kick them to the curb. And you? What do you get out of this besides revenge? I looked at her, really looked at her. I get myself back. The version of me that I buried when I met him. The woman who built businesses and made hard decisions and didn't make herself small for anyone. My daughters need to see that woman. Caleb needs to know what real strength looks like. They're 3 months old, baby. They'll remember the woman I become. Not the details, but the essence. I refuse to let them grow up thinking their mother just accepted being abandoned. My mother sighed, but didn't argue. She understood. She'd watched me disappear into the role of Adrian's wife, watched me diminish myself piece by piece until I was barely recognizable. She was glad to see me coming back. That afternoon, I had a visitor I didn't expect. Malcolm called up from the lobby. Eden, there's a Natasha Bennett here to see you. Should I send her away? Natasha, Adrian's girlfriend. The woman he'd been with while I was home with our children. Every instinct told me to refuse. To have Malcolm escort her out. But curiosity won. Send her up. But stay close. Already planning on it. 5 minutes later, my door opened and Natasha Bennett walked into my penthouse. She was even more beautiful in person, tall, blonde, polished in that way that came from good genes and expensive maintenance. She was wearing a designer suit that probably cost $3,000. She froze when she saw me. Really saw me. Not Eden Sinclair, frumpy housewife. But Eden Ashford, billionaire, standing in a penthouse that screamed wealth and power. You're not what I expected, she said finally. Most people aren't. What can I do for you, Miss Bennett? She glanced around the penthouse. At the expensive furniture. The original artwork. The view that you couldn't buy at any price because you had to own the building. Adrian said you were nobody. A burden. Someone who couldn't handle his success. Adrian says a lot of things. Most of them are lies. Why are you here? She took a breath. Because I thought I was helping him. Freeing him from a marriage that was holding him back. But she gestured at the penthouse. Who are you? I'm the woman who built everything Adrian thinks is his. I'm the mother of the 3 children he threw away. And I'm the person who's about to destroy him. I tilted my head. Does that answer your question? He said you had nothing. That you came from nothing. He was wrong about a lot of things. Natasha walked to the window, looking out at the city. I've been sleeping with him for 8 months. He told me his wife was clingy and needy, that she couldn't handle his lifestyle, that he was going to divorce her as soon as the babies were old enough. The babies he kicked out when they were 3 months old? She flinched. I didn't know about that until after. When I confronted him, he said it was complicated, that you'd left voluntarily. I left with 2 bags and 3 infants because he told me I had 10 minutes to get out of his house. There was nothing voluntary about it. She turned to face me, and I saw tears in her eyes. I'm not a homewrecker. I wouldn't have if I'd known. You're not the villain here, Miss Bennett. You're just another person Adrian lied to. Why are you being nice to me? I slept with your husband. You slept with a man who told you he was available. That's on him, not you. I paused. But since you're here, I have a question. How much do you know about Cole Logistics finances? She blinked at the change in topic. I do some consulting work for them. Marketing strategy. Why? Because Adrian has been running personal expenses through the company. The apartment where you've been meeting him? Company money. The trips he's been taking? Company money. He's been defrauding his investors. How do you know that? I smiled. Because I'm one of his investors. And I'm about to get access to every financial record the company has. Natasha stared at me. You invested in his company? After he threw you out. He doesn't know it's me. He thinks he's dealing with a venture capital firm. He has no idea that firm belongs to his wife. That's strategic? Justified? Exactly what he deserves. I was going to say brilliant. She walked back over to me. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. What are you going to do to him? I'm going to take everything. The company he thinks he built. The reputation he's so proud of. The billionaire status he's so desperate for. All of it. And then I'm going to make sure he understands exactly what he lost when he threw away his family. I want to help. I studied her carefully. Why? Because I believed his lies. I let myself be part of something that hurt you and your children. And because she paused. Because I've seen enough men like Adrian. Men who use people and throw them away when they're done. If you're going to take him down, I want to be part of it. What can you offer? I have access to his calendar. His emails. I know who he's meeting with, what deals he's working on. I know about the other women too. Other women? Plural. I thought I was the only one. But there are at least 2 others I know about. He keeps them all separate. Tells each of us we're special. I felt a wave of disgust, but pushed it down. This wasn't about emotion. This was about strategy. If you're serious about helping, I need documentation. Emails. Calendar entries. Anything that shows a pattern of deception or misuse of company resources. I can get you that. And I need to know everything about this deal he's working on. The one that's supposed to push him to billionaire status. He's trying to secure a contract with Hartmann International. It's a German conglomerate that needs a complete logistics overhaul. If he lands it, it would be worth $400 million over 5 years. Hartmann International. I knew the CEO, Klaus Hartmann. Our fathers had been friends. I'd had dinner with Klaus and his wife just 6 months before I disappeared. When is the meeting? 2 weeks. Adrian's flying to Berlin to present. Perfect. That gives me time. Natasha pulled out her phone. I'm sending you my personal number. The one Adrian doesn't know about. Anything you need, just ask. After she left, I sat down with my laptop and started making calls. First to Klaus Hartmann's office in Berlin. This is Eden Ashford. I need to speak with Klaus about a business matter. Yes, I'll hold. Klaus came on the line 2 minutes later, his German accent warm with recognition. Eden, I heard you were back. How wonderful to hear your voice. Klaus, it's good to talk to you too. I need a favor. Anything for Jonathan's daughter. I understand you're considering a contract with Cole Logistics. Ah, yes. Adrian Cole. Impressive young man. Very ambitious. What if I told you that Cole Logistics has some serious financial irregularities, misuse of investor funds, personal expenses being run through the company? There was a pause. Do you have proof of this? I will in 3 weeks. I'm a major investor in the company, and I'm about to get access to detailed financial records. I see. And you're telling me this because Adrian Cole is my husband. The one who kicked me and our 3 infant children out of our home a month ago. And because I want you to hear his pitch, let him think he has a chance, and then I want you to wait for my signal before making any decisions. Klaus was quiet for a moment. Then, your husband kicked you out? With babies. 3-month-old triplets. That man is a fool. Another pause. Send me what you find. I'll make sure Hartmann International makes the right decision. Thank you, Klaus. Eden? Your father would be proud of how you're handling this. I hung up and allowed myself a small smile. Adrian thought he was going to Berlin to secure the deal of his career. He had no idea I'd just made sure that deal would be contingent on my approval. The next 2 weeks were a carefully orchestrated ballet of strategy and preparation. I spent my days with the triplets, establishing routines and soaking in every moment with them. They were growing so fast. Morlan had started smiling, Caleb was tracking objects with his eyes, and Zara had the strongest grip I'd ever felt on a baby. But during their naps and after they went to sleep, I worked. Natasha sent me documentation. Emails where Adrian asked her to book the apartment for private client meetings that never appeared on his corporate calendar. Expense reports showing business dinners that were actually dates. Travel receipts for trips that had no business purpose. Malcolm's team provided financial analysis showing that Adrian had diverted approximately $780,000 in company funds to personal use over the past 2 years. Patricia prepared the legal framework for what would happen when I activated the conversion clause in my investment agreement. And I reached out to every contact I had in Adrian's desired social circles, the elite business networks, the charitable boards, the exclusive clubs. I let them know I was back. I reminded them of who I was and what I represented. By the time Adrian landed in Berlin for his meeting with Hartmann International, I had everything in place. He had no idea that while he was presenting his vision for revolutionizing Hartmann's logistics, Klaus was texting me updates and sending me photos of the pitch deck. He had no idea that the deal he thought would make him a billionaire was completely in my control. And he definitely had no idea that his wife was sitting in a penthouse in Portland, nursing their daughter while planning his professional destruction. The night Adrian was supposed to have his big meeting, I got a call from Tyler Richardson. Eden, are you watching the business news? No, why? Turn on CNBC. Now. I switched on the TV while holding Morlan against my shoulder. And there it was, breaking news. Adrian Cole of Cole Logistics poised to sign major international deal. The anchor was breathless with excitement. Adrian Cole, the 33-year-old CEO who's taken the logistics world by storm, is in Berlin tonight negotiating what sources say could be the largest contract in his company's history. If successful, this deal with Hartmann International would value Cole Logistics at over $1.2 billion, officially making Cole one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the tech sector. Self-made. I almost laughed. He's really selling the self-made narrative, isn't he? Tyler said. He actually believes it. That's the sad part. So when are you going to tell him? Soon. But not yet. I want him to taste success first. I want him to think he's finally made it. And then I want to take it all away. You're terrifying. I mean that as a compliment. I'll take it as one. I watched the news coverage for another few minutes. They showed footage of Adrian arriving at Hartmann's headquarters, looking confident and successful in his expensive suit. They interviewed business analysts who predicted Cole Logistics would be the next major IPO. And all I could think was, none of this would exist without me. The initial funding that saved his company. The connections that led to his biggest contracts. The strategic advice that guided his expansion. I'd built this. And now I was going to take it back. My phone buzzed with a text from Klaus. He's confident. Almost arrogant. Made several claims about his company's capabilities that I'll need to verify. The presentation itself was solid though. You taught him well. I typed back, I taught him everything. He just doesn't remember that. 3 hours later, Adrian called me. My old number, the one from our marriage. I hadn't changed it because I wanted to see if he'd ever use it. This was the first time he'd called since kicking us out a month ago. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Yes, Eden. His voice was full of excitement. I just wanted to let you know I'm about to close the biggest deal of my career. Hartman International. For $100 million contract. Congratulations. Look, I know things ended badly between us. But this deal, it's going to change everything. I'll be able to provide proper support for the kids. We can work out a custody arrangement that makes sense. How generous of you. To provide support for the children you abandoned. I didn't abandon them. I just needed space to focus. You kicked us out with 10 minutes notice, Adrian. That's abandonment. It wasn't like that. You're being dramatic. He paused. Anyway, I just thought you should know. Your life is about to get a lot easier. Dating a billionaire's ex-wife, even if it didn't work out, comes with certain benefits. Dating. He thought I'd need the connection to him to have any kind of life. I'll keep that in mind, I said, my voice neutral. I have to go. I'm meeting with some investors tonight. Important people. But I'll have my lawyer contact you about the custody arrangement. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there, holding the phone, feeling the rage build in my chest. He'd called to brag. To make sure I knew how successful he was. To remind me that even though he'd thrown me away, I should be grateful for whatever scraps he decided to offer. He had no idea what was coming. I called Patricia. How fast can we execute the conversion clause? If we have evidence of corporate malfeasance? Immediately. The contract is clear. And the financial review? When does that happen? We're scheduled to receive the first quarterly report next week. But with what Natasha has been sending you, we already have enough to trigger an investigation. Start the process. I want everything documented and ready. And I want a board meeting scheduled for 2 weeks from now. You're going to take control of the company. I'm going to take back what was always mine. Over the next week, several things happened in quick succession. First, Meridian Holdings officially requested a comprehensive financial audit of Coal Logistics as part of our standard investor due diligence. Adrian's team scrambled to comply. Second, I started making public appearances. Small ones at first, a charity gala here, a business lunch there. But each one reminded Portland's elite business community that Eden Ashford was back and active. The whispers started immediately. Who is she? Where had she been? And wait, wasn't she married to Adrian Cole? No one could quite make the connection yet. Eden Ashford the billionaire and Eden Sinclair the discarded wife seemed like two different people. They were about to learn they were the same person. Third, Klaus Hartman did exactly what I'd asked. He told Adrian that Hartman International was very interested in the contract, but they needed to complete their own due diligence on Coal Logistics' financial stability and corporate governance. Adrian, confident and unsuspecting, agreed immediately. This is standard for a contract this size, his CFO told him. Nothing to worry about. But I knew better. Klaus was going to find exactly what I wanted him to find. And fourth, my children turned 4 months old. I threw them a small celebration, just me, my mother, Malcolm, and the nanny staff who'd become like family. For months since they were born. For months since Adrian had kicked us out. As I held each of my babies, singing to them and watching them smile, I thought about how much my life had changed. A month ago, I'd been broken. Abandoned. Convinced that maybe Adrian was right, that maybe I was a burden. Now I was about to take control of a billion-dollar company, destroy the man who'd betrayed me, and show my children what real strength looked like. You're smiling, my mother observed. Should I be worried? About me? Never. About Adrian. I kissed Caleb's forehead. Absolutely. The financial audit results came back on a Friday afternoon. Patricia called me immediately. Eden, you need to see this. How bad is it? Worse than we thought. Adrian has diverted over $1.2 million in company funds to personal use over the past 2 years. The downtown apartment. Multiple trips that had no business purpose. Entertainment expenses that were actually dates with various women. He's even been paying for Natasha's consulting services at triple the market rate. Can we prove it was intentional? We have emails where he explicitly tells his CFO to categorize personal expenses as business costs. He knew exactly what he was doing. That's fraud. That's fraud. I closed my eyes, feeling the final piece click into place. Send everything to Klaus Hartmann. And prepare the conversion paperwork. I want to activate the clause on Monday. You're sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything. That weekend, I prepared for war. I had my lawyers review every document. I had Malcolm ensure my security was airtight because when this went public, there would be fallout. I had my mother take the triplets to her house for a few days because I needed to focus without worrying about them. And I called Tyler. How would you like to be present when I take down Adrian Cole? I wouldn't miss it for anything. Board meeting. Monday at 10 a.m. Meridian Holdings is exercising its rights under the investment agreement. I'm taking operational control of Cole Logistics. He still doesn't know you're behind Meridian? He's about to find out. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. I dressed in a power suit that cost more than Adrian's car. I had my hair and makeup done professionally. I looked like exactly what I was. A billionaire who was done playing games. Malcolm drove me to Cole Logistics headquarters. Adrian's company. The building that had been purchased with my money, filled with technology I'd connected him with, running on strategies I'd helped develop. You ready for this? Malcolm asked. I've been ready for a month. We walked into the building, and I saw the receptionist's eyes widen. She recognized me as Eden Sinclair, Adrian's ex-wife. She had no idea what was about to happen. I'm here for the board meeting, I said calmly. There's no meeting scheduled. Check again. Meridian Holdings called an emergency session under Section 7.3 of the investment agreement. She typed frantically. Oh my God. Yes, it's here. But 10th floor. I know where it is. I walked to the elevator, Malcolm behind me, and rode up to the executive level. The level where Adrian's office was. Where he sat right now, probably reviewing notes for the Hartmann deal, completely unaware that his world was about to implode. The conference room was full when I arrived. Adrian's board members. His CFO. His lawyers. Patricia and Sven from Meridian. And Tyler, sitting in the back, watching everything with barely concealed amusement. But no Adrian yet. Ms. Ashford, one of the board members said, standing. We weren't expecting. Sit down, Richard. You'll want to hear this. Adrian's CFO, a man named Thomas, stepped forward. I'm sorry, but who are you? This meeting is for board members and Meridian Holdings representatives only. I'm both, I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. I'm Eden Ashford, primary shareholder of Meridian Holdings. Which means I'm now the largest single shareholder of Cole Logistics. The room went silent. That's impossible, Thomas said. Adrian is the largest shareholder. Not according to the investment agreement he signed 4 weeks ago. Meridian holds a convertible 23% stake, which converts to 35% under certain conditions. Those conditions have been met. Patricia slid a folder across the table. Financial audit results. Evidence of corporate malfeasance. Misuse of investor funds. All documented and verified. The board members started flipping through the documents, their faces growing paler with each page. This can't be right, Richard said. Adrian wouldn't. Adrian has been defrauding his investors for 2 years, I said calmly. He's been using company money for personal expenses. He's been lying to board members about corporate finances. And he's been inflating projections to attract investment. Where is Adrian? Someone asked. He's in his office, Thomas said quietly. Should I? Yes. Get him. Now. Thomas left, and I sat there in Adrian's chair, at the head of his board table, waiting. 3 minutes later, the door opened. And Adrian walked in. He was looking at his phone, not paying attention, probably expecting another routine meeting. He started talking before he even looked up. Sorry I'm late. I was on a call with Hartmann's team. They're ready to move forward with. He looked up, saw me sitting at the head of his table, and froze. Hello, Adrian, I said calmly. We need to talk about your company. For a long moment, he just stared at me. I could see his mind working, trying to process why his ex-wife was in his boardroom. Eden? What are you doing here? Attending a board meeting. As the largest shareholder of Coal Logistics. I gestured to the empty chair at the far end of the table. Please sit down. We have a lot to discuss. His face went white. And I smiled. Hey. Adrian didn't sit down. He stood there, frozen in the doorway, staring at me like I was a ghost. What is she talking about? He asked Thomas, his voice tight. Largest shareholder? That's insane. It's in the paperwork, Adrian, Thomas said quietly, sliding a document across the table. Meridian Holdings' conversion clause was activated this morning. They now control 35% of the company. You hold 62%, but divided among all other shareholders, Meridian is the single largest entity. Meridian is Adrian's eyes snapped to me. You're Meridian? I am. Well, more accurately, I own Meridian Holdings. Along with Phoenix Investment Group, Ashford Global Properties, and about a dozen other corporations you've never heard of. I leaned back in the chair. Sit down, Adrian. You're making everyone uncomfortable. How long have you? He stumbled to the chair, practically falling into it. How is this possible? Which part? That I own a multi-billion-dollar investment firm? Or that I invested in your company without telling you? Patricia spoke up. Mr. Cole, perhaps you should review the financial audit we've prepared. There are some irregularities that need to be addressed. Adrian grabbed the folder in front of him, flipping through pages with shaking hands. I watched his face as he saw the evidence. The apartment expenses. The trips with Natasha and others. The inflated expense reports. All of it documented with receipts, emails, and bank statements. This is a mistake, he said finally. These expenses were legitimate business costs. Really? I pulled out my phone and brought up an email Natasha had forwarded me. So this message where you told Thomas to categorize your weekend trip to Cabo with Natasha as a client development expense, that was legitimate? Adrian's eyes widened. How did you get that? I have access to a lot of things, Adrian. That's what happens when you're actually a billionaire, not just trying to become one. One of the board members, a woman named Jennifer, cleared her throat. Mr. Cole, are these allegations accurate? Have you been using company funds for personal expenses? It's not that simple. It's very simple, I interrupted. You committed fraud. You diverted investor funds, my funds, to pay for your affairs and your lifestyle. You lied to your board, your investors, and your business partners. You don't understand the pressure I was under, Adrian said, his voice rising. Building this company, maintaining relationships, networking. It all costs money. Money that wasn't yours to spend. Thomas leaned forward. Adrian, I advised you multiple times that these expenses were inappropriate. You overruled me every time. Because you didn't understand what it takes to succeed at this level. Adrian slammed his hand on the table. I was building something here. Something important. You are building something on my foundation, I said quietly. Let me tell you a story, Adrian. 5 years ago, you were about to lose everything. Your startup was failing. You were 3 weeks from bankruptcy. And then, mysteriously, you received $15 million in funding from Meridian Holdings. Do you remember that? That was a legitimate investment. They saw the potential in my platform. They saw that I wanted to help the man I was falling in love with. I arranged that funding, Adrian. I saved your company. And every major success you've had since then, every contract, every expansion, every strategic partnership, I was behind it, guiding it, making it possible. The room was completely silent. You're lying, Adrian said, but his voice lacked conviction. Patricia slid another folder across the table. Documentation of every strategic intervention. The introduction to Riverside Manufacturing that became your first major contract? Eden arranged it through her network. The technology licensing deal with Quantum Systems? Eden brokered that introduction. The warehouse properties you lease in 3 states? Those are owned by Ashford Global Properties. You've been paying rent to your wife's company for 2 years. Adrian opened the folder with shaking hands. I watched him flip through page after page of evidence showing that his self-made success was actually carefully orchestrated by the woman he'd thrown away. Why, he finally asked, looking up at me. If you had all this power, all this money, why did you pretend to be nobody? Because I loved you. Because I wanted a normal life. Because I was tired of people only seeing my bank account. I paused. And because I wanted to see if someone could love me for who I was, not what I had. You failed that test spectacularly. Tyler spoke from the back of the room. For what it's worth, Adrian, Eden Ashford is old money. Real money. Her father built one of the largest private equity firms in the world. She was a billionaire before she ever met you. Adrian's face went from white to red. So this was all what? A game? Were you laughing at me the whole time? No. I was loving you, supporting you, building a life with you. Right up until the moment you kicked me and our 3 children out of our home because we were inconvenient. Our home? That was my house. Actually, Sven pulled up a document on the screen at the front of the room. The property at 2847 Riverside Drive is owned by Ashford Global Properties LLC. The deed is in Eden's name. You've been living in her house. I watched Adrian process this. Watched him realize that everything he thought he owned, everything he thought he'd built, was actually mine. The car you drive? I continued. Leased through one of my companies. The office furniture in this building? Purchased through my interior design firm. Even your executive assistant's salary is partially subsidized by a workforce development grant from my foundation. Richard looked at me with something like awe. How much of this company is actually his? The initial concept was his. The code he wrote for the first version of the platform was his. Everything after that. I shrugged. He had help. He just didn't know where it was coming from. Adrian stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is insane. You're trying to steal my company. I'm not trying to steal anything. I'm taking back what was always mine. I stood too, facing him across the table. You made a choice, Adrian. You chose to believe you were a self-made genius. You chose to kick out your family. You chose to commit fraud with investor money. Those choices have consequences. What do you want? What do I want? I walked around the table slowly, letting the question hang in the air. I want you to understand what you threw away. I want you to realize that every success you've celebrated was built on my foundation. And I want control of this company. Never. I'll fight you. With what resources? Your salary comes from a company I now control. Your assets are mostly tied up in company stock that's about to be worthless if Hartmann International pulls their contract. Your apartment is being paid for with fraudulent expenses that I'm about to report. What exactly are you going to fight me with? Jennifer spoke up. Eden, what exactly are you proposing? I returned to my seat at the head of the table. I'm proposing that Adrian steps down as CEO. That I assume operational control of coal logistics. That we restructure the company with proper financial oversight and corporate governance. And that we cooperate fully with Hartmann International's due diligence so we don't lose a $400 million contract. You can't do this, Adrian said, but he sounded desperate now. I already did. The conversion clause activated at 9 a.m. this morning. As of right now, I have voting control. The board can either work with me, or I can trigger the corporate malfeasance clause and force a complete restructuring. I looked around the table. What's it going to be? Richard looked at Adrian, then at me. If Adrian steps down, who runs the company? I do. With Patricia as CFO and a new management team that I'll bring in. People who understand that success is built on integrity, not fraud. And what happens to Adrian? He keeps his equity stake, diminished as it is. He gets his severance package. And he walks away before this turns into a criminal investigation. Adrian's head snapped up. Criminal. You committed fraud, Adrian. You stole from your investors. If I wanted to, I could have you prosecuted. I'm offering you a way out that lets you keep your freedom and some dignity. Thomas spoke quietly. Adrian, you should take this deal. If the fraud becomes public. There's no fraud. This is my company. It's really not, Tyler said from the back. I've been reviewing the documents while you've been talking. Eden has you boxed in from every angle. The only question is whether you go down quietly or publicly. Adrian looked around the table, seeing no support. His board members wouldn't meet his eyes. His CFO was reviewing the evidence against him. His lawyers were making notes about liability. He was alone. I need time to think, he said finally. You have until 5 p.m. today, I said. Either you resign voluntarily, or I force a vote. And Adrian? I will win that vote. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You just haven't accepted it yet. Adrian stormed out of the conference room, and I heard him shouting at his assistant in the hallway. The board members sat in uncomfortable silence. Is it true? Jennifer asked quietly. About the children? He really kicked you out. 3 months postpartum. With triplets. He gave me 10 minutes to pack whatever I could carry. Jesus. Richard shook his head. I knew Adrian was ambitious, but I didn't think. You didn't think he'd throw away his family for a shot at billionaire status? I smiled without humor. Neither did I. But here we are. Patricia started organizing the documents. We should prepare for his resignation. Draft a press release. Brief the employees. This is going to be a major transition. I'll handle the Hartman situation personally, I said. Klaus and I have known each other for years. He'll appreciate the transparency. Klaus Hartman knows you? Thomas looked surprised. Klaus Hartman watched me grow up. Our fathers were business partners. He was at my wedding to Adrian, actually, though Adrian was too focused on networking to notice. The pieces were clicking into place for the board members. The wealthy, powerful connections they thought Adrian was building? I'd had them all along. Over the next few hours, I transformed coal logistics from Adrian's playground into a properly run company. I brought in my team, real professionals who knew how to run billion-dollar operations. I reviewed every contract, every expense, every strategic decision Adrian had made. And I discovered just how much damage he'd done in his quest for success. He'd overpromised to clients, cut corners on service quality, deferred maintenance on critical systems, all to make the numbers look good for investors. This is going to take months to fix, Patricia said as we reviewed the operational issues. Then we have months of work ahead of us. At 4:45 p.m., Thomas came to find me. Adrian wants to talk. In private. I found Adrian in his office, my office now, technically. He was standing at the window, looking out at the city. Beautiful view, I said. I picked this office specifically for this view. It reminded me that I was going places. You were going places. Just not the ones you thought. He turned to face me. How long have you been planning this? I wasn't planning anything. You forced my hand when you kicked us out. Us. The babies. He looked pained. How are they? They're 4 months old now. Healthy. Growing. Learning to smile. All things you'd know if you'd bothered to ask at any point in the last month. I was going to. Once I closed the Hartman deal. Once things settled down. Children don't wait for things to settle down, Adrian. They grow up whether you're paying attention or not. He sat down heavily in his chair. I never knew. About the money. About who you really were. You never asked. You were so convinced you knew everything about me that you never bothered to find out the truth. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to be loved for myself, not my bank account. And because I was running from people who wanted to take what was mine. I thought I could have a normal life with you. Was any of it real? Did you ever actually love me? I considered lying. It would be easier. But I'd spent 5 years lying by omission. I was done with that. Yes, I loved you. I loved you enough to give up my identity and build your company from the shadows. I loved you enough to put my career on hold and support yours. I loved you enough to have your children and try to build a family. I paused. You just didn't love me enough to choose me when it mattered. I was under so much pressure. The company, the expectations, trying to prove myself. So you threw away the person who was making all of it possible. That's not pressure, Adrian. That's cowardice. He flinched. What happens now? Now you resign. You make a statement about wanting to pursue other opportunities. You keep your equity stake and your severance. And you stay away from the operational side of this company. And if I fight you, then I go public with everything. The fraud. The affairs. The fact that you abandoned your infant children. I'll make sure every business publication knows exactly what kind of man you are. Your reputation will be destroyed, and you'll probably face criminal charges. You'd do that. To protect my children and my company? Absolutely. Adrian pulled out a piece of paper from his desk drawer. I already wrote the resignation letter. I needed to understand why first. And do you? Understand why? I understand that I'm an idiot who destroyed the best thing that ever happened to him because I was too arrogant to see what was right in front of me. That's a start. He signed the letter and slid it across the desk. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. About the babies. About kicking you out. About all of it. Apologies are easy, Adrian. They don't mean much when you had to lose everything to feel sorry. Can I see them? The triplets. Eventually. When you've proven you're actually interested in being a father, not just assuaging your guilt. Until then, my lawyer will be in touch about custody arrangements and child support. Child support? You're a billionaire. And they're your children. You're going to support them properly. I took the resignation letter and walked toward the door. Eden? I turned back. Were you ever really happy? With me? Yes. Before I realized you valued your ego more than your family. Before I understood that you saw me as a possession rather than a partner. Before you showed me exactly how little I meant to you. I opened the door. I was very happy. But that woman is gone. You killed her when you told her to get out. I left him sitting in his office and went back to the conference room where my team was waiting. He signed, I said, placing the letter on the table. Patricia smiled. Then it's official. You're the new CEO of Cole Logistics. The news went public at 6 p.m. Press release from Cole Logistics announcing Adrian Cole's resignation and the appointment of Eden Ashford as CEO. Within minutes, my phone was exploding with calls. Business reporters wanting the story. Old contacts congratulating me. Investors wanting to know what this meant for the company. But there was one call I needed to make first. Klaus? It's Eden. I wanted to give you a personal update before you hear it from the news. I'm already watching CNBC, Klaus said, sounding amused. They're calling it the business story of the year. Billionaire heiress returns from hiding to take over her husband's company. Ex-husband, as of this afternoon. I filed divorce papers an hour ago. Good for you. And the Hartmann contract. I'm sending you complete transparency on our financials and operations. You'll see that we have some issues to resolve, but nothing that affects our ability to deliver on the contract. I'm personally guaranteeing Cole Logistics performance. Your personal guarantee is worth more than your ex-husband's entire company. Consider the contract approved. I'll have my team finalize terms with your new CFO. Thank you, Klaus. Thank your father. He taught you well. I hung up and allowed myself a moment of satisfaction. In less than 12 hours, I'd taken control of Adrian's company, secured the biggest contract in its history, and ensured the triplets' father would be held accountable for his responsibilities. But I wasn't done yet. Over the next week, the story exploded across business media. The billionaire who hid in plain sight. How Eden Ashford built her husband's empire without him knowing. The most expensive divorce in tech. Everyone wanted an interview. Everyone wanted the inside story. I gave exactly one interview to a business journalist I trusted named Rebecca Martin. We sat in my penthouse while the triplets napped, and I told her everything. About disappearing after my father's death. About meeting Adrian. About funding his company while pretending to be nobody. About being kicked out with 3 babies. Why are you telling me this now? Rebecca asked. Because my daughters need to grow up knowing that women don't have to hide their power. That being smart and successful isn't something to apologize for. And because other women need to know that they don't have to accept being diminished by partners who can't handle their strength. The article ran the following Sunday. Front page of the business section. The woman behind the billionaire, how Eden Ashford's secret empire built her husband's success. It went viral immediately. Women sharing it with comments about their own experiences being overlooked. Business leaders praising my strategic thinking. And a surprising number of people condemning Adrian for his treatment of me and the children. Adrian, meanwhile, had gone silent. No public statements. No social media. He'd disappeared from public view. But I heard things through my network. He'd moved out of the downtown apartment. Let go of most of his staff. Stopped seeing Natasha and his other girlfriends. He's in his house, Malcolm reported. Alone. He hasn't been out in 3 days. Which house? The Riverside property. Your property, technically. Then he needs to leave. File eviction proceedings. Eden, are you sure? That seems. He kicked me out with 10 minutes notice and 3 babies. He gets 30 days and lawyers. That's more than generous. But before Malcolm could file the paperwork, something happened that changed everything. I was feeding Moreland when my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. Hello, Ms. Ashford? This is Dr. Patricia Chadwick from Portland General Hospital. Different Patricia than my CFO. I'm calling about Adrian Cole. He was brought in an hour ago. My heart stopped. What happened? He collapsed at his home. Severe dehydration and malnutrition. He's stable now, but Ms. Ashford, when was the last time you saw him? A week ago. When he resigned from his company. He's been asking for you. And for the children. He's quite distressed. I closed my eyes. I could ignore this. I could let him deal with the consequences of his actions alone. He'd certainly left me alone when I needed him. But I wasn't him. I'll be there in 30 minutes. I called my mother to come stay with the triplets, then had Malcolm drive me to the hospital. The whole way, I tried to figure out how I felt about this. Adrian had destroyed our marriage. Abandoned our children. Committed fraud. He deserved everything that was happening to him. But he was also the father of my babies. The man I'd once loved enough to give up my identity for. I found him in a private room, hooked up to IVs, looking thinner than I'd ever seen him. Eden. His voice was rough. You came. The doctor called. She said you collapsed. I haven't been eating. Or sleeping. Just sitting in that house, thinking about everything I destroyed. I pulled a chair next to his bed but didn't sit. The doctors say you'll be fine. Physically, anyway. I saw the article. The one about how you built everything for me. Rebecca is a good journalist. She got the facts right. I never knew. I swear, Eden, I never knew what you were doing for me. Would it have mattered if you did? Would you have treated me differently? He was quiet for a long moment. Probably not. I was so focused on proving myself, on being someone important, that I couldn't see I already had everything that mattered. Past tense. You had it. You threw it away. I know. And his voice broke. I can't stop thinking about them. The babies. I never even held Zara properly. I don't know what Moreland's laugh sounds like. I missed Caleb's first smile. Yes, you did. Can I see them? Please? I know I don't deserve it, but… They're 4 months old, Adrian. They don't know you. You're a stranger to them. Then let me stop being a stranger. Let me try to be their father. I studied him carefully. This broken man in a hospital bed was nothing like the arrogant CEO who'd kicked us out. But was the change real? Or was this just another performance? Here's what's going to happen, I said finally. You're going to recover. You're going to find a therapist and deal with whatever drove you to destroy your life. You're going to prove, over time, that you're capable of being a stable presence in your children's lives. And if you can do all that, then maybe we can discuss supervised visitation. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank the fact that those 3 babies deserve a chance to know their father, even if he doesn't deserve to know them. And us? Is there any chance? No. Whatever we had is gone. You killed it when you chose your ego over your family. I'm divorcing you, Adrian. That's not changing. I understand. I moved toward the door, then stopped. The house on Riverside. You need to move out. I'm giving you 60 days. That's twice what you gave me. Where will I go? That's not my problem anymore. Figure it out like I had to figure it out when you threw me away. I left him there and drove home to my children. To the life I was building without him. But as I held my babies that night, I couldn't help thinking about the man in that hospital bed. The man who'd once been my husband. The man who'd lost everything because he couldn't see what mattered. Part of me felt satisfied. Justice had been served. But another part, a smaller part one didn't like to acknowledge, felt sad. Sad for what we could have been. Sad for the family we'd almost had. Sad for the man Adrian could have been if he'd made different choices. Your father is learning some hard lessons, I whispered to sleeping Caleb. Lessons he should have learned a long time ago. Maybe it's not too late for him to become someone you can be proud of. But that's up to him now. My phone buzzed. A text from Natasha. I heard Adrian's in the hospital. Is he okay? I hesitated, then typed back, he will be. Eventually. For what it's worth, I told him he was an idiot for what he did to you. I'm sure that helped immensely. Probably not. But I meant it. What you did, taking back your company, exposing the truth, it was incredible. You're my hero. I smiled despite myself. Just a woman who got tired of being underestimated. Well, you're inspiring a lot of other women to stop accepting less than they deserve. I put down my phone and looked around my penthouse. At my 3 sleeping children. At the life I'd built from the ashes of my marriage. Adrian had thought throwing me away would free him to achieve greatness. Instead, it had freed me to reclaim the greatness I'd always had. And that, I realized, was the real victory. Not destroying him. Not taking his company. Not even exposing his lies. The real victory was remembering who I was. Who I'd always been. A woman who didn't need anyone's permission to be powerful. Adrian's downfall was just a consequence of forgetting that simple truth. Never underestimate someone you think you know. You might discover you didn't know them at all. 2 weeks after Adrian's hospitalization, I received a call I wasn't expecting. Margaret Cole, Adrian's mother. I stared at the name on my screen, debating whether to answer. This woman had never liked me, had barely tolerated my presence in her son's life, and had certainly never called me directly before. I answered on the 4th ring. Mrs. Cole. Eden. Her voice was tight, strained. I need to speak with you. In person. I don't think that's a good idea. Please. It's about Adrian. And the children. The children. She'd never shown any interest in her grandchildren before. Not when they were born. Not when Adrian kicked us out. Not once in their 4 months of life. What about them? Not over the phone. Please. I'll come to you. Anywhere you want. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory. Malcolm would be nearby, just in case. Margaret arrived exactly on time, looking nothing like the polished, judgmental woman I remembered. She'd aged visibly, more gray in her hair, deeper lines around her eyes, a tremor in her hands as she sat down across from me. "Thank you for seeing me," she said. "You have 15 minutes. She took a breath. "I owe you an apology. Several apologies, actually." I waited, saying nothing. "I never liked you. I thought Adrian could do better. Thought he should marry someone from our social circle, someone who understood his ambitions." She looked down at her coffee. "I was wrong about everything. Is this the part where you tell me you've seen the error of your ways now that you know I'm rich?" "No. This is the part where I tell you that I destroyed my son's life, and I don't know how to fix it." That got my attention. Margaret's hands shook harder as she pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. Adrian, but younger, maybe 22 or 23. He was smiling, relaxed, nothing like the ambitious, driven man I'd known. This was Adrian before I started pushing him. Before I convinced him that success was measured in dollars and status. She swiped to another photo. This was after his father left us. After I decided that Adrian needed to be more than his father ever was. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I turned my son into a monster. I told him that family was less important than achievement. That love was weakness. That people were only valuable if they could help him climb higher." Her voice cracked. "I taught him to see his wife and children as obstacles instead of blessings. And now he's lost everything, and it's my fault." I studied her carefully. "What do you want from me, Margaret?" "Nothing. I don't deserve anything from you. I just wanted you to know that none of this, none of what Adrian did, was because of who you are. It was because of who I made him." She paused. "And I wanted to ask about my grandchildren. If I could, if you would allow me to meet them. You've known about them for 4 months. Why no? Because I was ashamed. Ashamed that my son threw away his family. Ashamed that I encouraged him to do it. Ashamed that I failed so completely as a mother that he thought abandoning his children was acceptable." Tears ran down her face. "I know I have no right to ask. But they're my grandchildren. And I want to do better for them than I did for Adrian. I wanted to say no. Wanted to protect my children from this woman who'd helped destroy their father. But I saw something in her face that made me pause. Genuine remorse. Real pain. The kind that came from understanding exactly how much damage you'd caused." "I'll think about it," I said finally. "But if I allow you to meet them, it will be on my terms. Supervised visits. Limited contact. And the moment you show any sign of the judgment or toxicity you showed me, you're done." "Thank you. That's more than I deserve." "Yes, it is." Margaret stood to leave, then hesitated. "There's something else you should know. About Adrian." "What?" "He's been getting calls. From someone named Brett. His old friend from college. Brett's been telling him that you stole his company. That you used your wealth to manipulate him. That he should fight back." My jaw tightened. Brett. The same friend who'd encouraged Adrian to see his family as a burden. Who'd laughed when I was thrown out. What has Adrian said? At first, nothing. He was too broken to respond. But lately, Margaret looked worried. Lately, he's been listening. Brett's been visiting him at that house. Telling him he's a victim. That you planned this from the beginning. Planned what? Falling in love with him? Funding his company? Having his children? Brett's twisting everything. Making it sound like you were using Adrian. Like you only married him to have someone to control. I felt ice forming in my chest. And Adrian believes this? I don't know. He won't talk to me. But Brett's very persuasive. And Adrian's vulnerable right now. Broken. Looking for someone to blame besides himself. After Margaret left, I called Malcolm immediately. I need surveillance on Adrian. 24/7. I want to know everyone who visits him, every call he makes, every move he makes. You think he's going to try something? I think his friend is poisoning his mind. And a desperate man with bad advice is dangerous. I'll have a team in place within the hour. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Margaret had said. About Brett convincing Adrian he was a victim. about the possibility that Adrian might actually believe he had been wronged. I got up and went to check on the triplets. All three sleeping peacefully, completely unaware of the storm gathering around them. "Your father's making choices again," I whispered to them. "And I'm afraid he's going to choose wrong. Again." The next morning, I got my answer. Patricia called at 7 a.m. Eden, "We have a problem. Adrian's filed a lawsuit." "Against who?" "Against you. Against Meridian Holdings. Against the company. He's claiming fraud, manipulation, and theft of intellectual property." I sat down heavily. "He's suing me? He's claiming that you deceived him about your identity in order to steal his company. That you deliberately hid your wealth to manipulate him into marriage. That the investment agreement was fraudulent because you didn't disclose your conflict of interest." Patricia paused. "It's actually a clever argument. Legally questionable, but clever." "Who's representing him?" "Morrison and Associates. Very expensive. Someone's bankrolling this for him. Someone named Brett, I'd bet. Old money protecting old money. Making sure the uppity woman who dared to challenge one of their own was put in her place." "What are our options?" "We fight it. We have documentation proving everything we did was legal. The investment agreement was standard. Your identity wasn't relevant to the business transaction. And his fraud is well documented. But lawsuits like this get messy. They drag out. They become public. And they're going to dredge up every detail of your marriage and divorce, including the fact that Adrian had kicked out his wife and newborn triplets, including his affairs, including the fraud. This wasn't about winning. This was about destroying my reputation before I could destroy his." "When's the first hearing?" 2 weeks. He's asking for an emergency injunction to freeze your control of coal logistics pending the outcome of the case. He wants the company back. He wants to prove he's not the villain of the story. And he thinks if he can paint you as the manipulator, the deceiver, the woman who used her wealth to trap him, then he comes out looking sympathetic." I laughed bitterly. "Sympathetic? The man who abandoned his children. In his version of events, you drove him to it. You were secretly rich and controlling. He was just trying to build something of his own, and you couldn't stand not being in charge. The revision of history was breathtaking. Adrian was rewriting our entire relationship to cast himself as the victim and me as the villain. Set up a meeting with our legal team. Full strategy session. I want every piece of evidence we have organized and ready. Already on it." I spent the next few hours in emergency meetings with my lawyers. We reviewed the lawsuit line by line, identifying every false claim, every distortion, every outright lie. And there were many. Adrian claimed I'd pursued him deliberately, targeting him because his company had potential I wanted to exploit. Lie. We'd met randomly at a conference. He claimed I'd hidden my wealth specifically to manipulate him into a dependent relationship. Lie. I'd hidden my wealth because I was running from people trying to kill me for my inheritance. He claimed the initial Meridian investment was fraudulent because I hadn't disclosed that I was romantically involved with him. Technically true, but the investment had been made before we were married, and he'd never asked about conflicts of interest. He claimed I'd sabotaged his relationships and isolated him from his friends so I could control him. Laughable. His friends had been trying to get him to leave me since our wedding. "This is all garbage," my lead attorney, David Park, said. "But garbage that will sound convincing to people who don't know the full story." Then we tell the full story. "Are you sure?" "That means making everything public. The affairs. The abandonment of the children. His fraud. It gets ugly. It's already ugly. At least this way, the truth comes out." That afternoon, I did something I'd been avoiding. I called Adrian directly. He answered on the third ring. "Eden, you're suing me. I'm protecting what's mine." "What's yours?" "Adrian, I built your company. I funded it. I made the connections that turned it into something valuable. And you're suing me for theft. You lied to me. About everything. Our entire relationship was based on deception. I didn't tell you about my money because I wanted to be loved for myself, not my bank account. That's not deception, that's self-preservation. You manipulated me into depending on you. I supported you. I helped you. I gave up my identity and my career to be your wife. No one asked you to do that. The words hit me like a physical blow. No one asked you. You're right, I said quietly. No one asked me to love you. No one asked me to fund your dreams. No one asked me to have your children and build a life with you. I chose to do all of that. And you chose to throw it away. You stole my company. I took back what was always mine. There's a difference. We'll see what the judge says. Yes, we will. And Adrian? When this goes to trial, everything comes out. The affairs. The fraud. The way you kicked out your children. Every ugly truth you've been trying to hide. Are you ready for that? He was quiet for a long moment. Brett says you're bluffing. That you won't want to air the dirty laundry any more than I do. Brett is wrong. I have nothing to hide. Can you say the same? I hung up before he could answer. The next 2 weeks were a blur of legal preparation and media management. Word of the lawsuit leaked, of course it did, and suddenly I was fielding questions from every business publication in the country. I gave a single statement through my publicist: Mr. Cole's lawsuit is without merit. I look forward to presenting the facts in court. But behind the scenes, I was preparing for war. Malcolm's surveillance team had been tracking Adrian's movements and communications. What they found was disturbing. Adrian wasn't just meeting with Brett. He was meeting with a whole network of men, wealthy, connected men who saw my success as a threat to their world order. They're funding his lawsuit, Malcolm explained, showing me photos of Adrian entering various offices and expensive restaurants. These men don't like the narrative that's emerged. A black woman who built a secret empire and took down her white husband who underestimated her? That's their worst nightmare. Because it means their wives, their girlfriends, their daughters might get ideas. Exactly. They're using Adrian as a test case. If they can paint you as the villain, they discredit every woman who's ever been underestimated. Then we need to make sure they lose. The hearing for the emergency injunction arrived on a cold Tuesday morning. I dressed in a sharp navy suit, wore minimal jewelry, and walked into that courthouse with my head high. Adrian was already there with his legal team. He looked better than he had in the hospital. He'd gained back some weight, gotten a haircut, bought a new suit. His lawyers surrounded him like a protective wall. And standing behind him, watching me with cold calculation, was Brett. I met Brett's eyes across the courtroom and smiled. He wanted a fight? He was about to get one. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Honor Richardson, called the hearing to order. Adrian's lawyer, a slick man named James Morrison, stood first. Your Honor, my client is asking for an emergency injunction because his company, the company he built from nothing, has been stolen from him through fraudulent means. Objection, David said calmly. Characterization. Sustained. Mr. Morrison, stick to facts. Morrison continued, laying out Adrian's version of events. The innocent entrepreneur who'd been seduced and manipulated by a wealthy woman hiding her true identity. The devoted husband who'd been driven away by his controlling wife. The father who'd been denied access to his children. I listened to this fiction with growing anger. They'd taken every truth and twisted it into something unrecognizable. Then it was our turn. David stood and presented our evidence methodically. The investment agreement Adrian had signed, which clearly laid out the terms. The financial audit showing his fraud. The documentation of his affairs. The timeline showing that I'd been the one supporting him, not controlling him. Your Honor, Ms. Ashford didn't steal anything. She invested in a struggling company. That company engaged in corporate fraud, and she exercised her legal right to take operational control. The fact that the company's CEO happened to be her husband is irrelevant to the legality of her actions. But she didn't disclose, Morrison started. She wasn't required to disclose anything, David interrupted. The investment was made by Meridian Holdings, a legitimate corporation. There's no law requiring investors to reveal their personal relationships to the companies they invest in. Judge Richardson looked at the evidence for a long moment. Then she looked at Adrian. Mr. Cole, did you or did you not sign this investment agreement? I did, but... Did anyone force you to sign it? No, but I didn't know. Did your lawyers review the agreement before you signed it? Adrian hesitated. Yes. And did they advise you about the conversion clause and the corporate governance requirements? They mentioned it, but... So you signed an agreement that your own lawyers reviewed, and now you're claiming fraud because the investor turned out to be someone you knew personally? She's my wife. She should have told me. Ex-wife, according to the divorce filing. And Mr. Cole, I've reviewed the evidence presented here. The timeline shows that Ms. Ashford invested in your company before you were married. Are you claiming that your girlfriend at the time should have disclosed her personal wealth to you? That's different. How is it different? Adrian struggled for an answer. I could see him realizing that the argument they'd built, that I'd deceived him, was falling apart under basic logical scrutiny. Your Honor, Morrison jumped in, there's also the matter of Mr. Cole being denied access to his children. Judge Richardson turned to me. Ms. Ashford, is Mr. Cole currently allowed to see his children? He has the ability to petition for supervised visitation through family court, I said calmly. I've never denied him that right. He simply hasn't exercised it. So he could see his children, he just hasn't filed the appropriate paperwork? Correct. The judge made a note. Mr. Morrison, anything else? Your Honor, my client's reputation has been destroyed by his wife's, ex-wife's actions. She's painted him as a villain in the media when he was simply trying to build a successful company. Has Ms. Ashford made any public statements about Mr. Cole beyond confirming that she took operational control of Cole Logistics? David stood. Your Honor, Ms. Ashford gave one interview to a business journalist in which she factually described her role in funding and supporting Cole Logistics. She made no character attacks and focused solely on her business decisions. And Mr. Cole? Has he made public statements? Morrison shifted uncomfortably. My client has exercised his right to defend himself. By calling his ex-wife a manipulative liar in 3 separate interviews, David said, pulling out printed articles. By claiming she trapped him in marriage and stole his life's work. By suggesting she's an unfit mother who's keeping his children from him despite having made no effort to seek custody. Judge Richardson looked at the articles, her expression darkening. Mr. Cole, did you give these interviews? I was advised that I needed to tell my side of the story. Your side of the story includes calling the mother of your children a manipulative liar, and you wonder why she's cautious about unsupervised visitation. Adrian's face flushed red. The judge reviewed her notes for what felt like an eternity. Then she looked up. I'm denying the request for an emergency injunction. Mr. Cole, you signed a legal contract. The fact that you now regret that decision doesn't make it fraudulent. The fact that your investor turned out to be your wife doesn't invalidate the agreement. And the fact that you don't like the consequences of your own business decisions is not grounds for judicial intervention. But, Your Honor, Morrison started. Furthermore, I'm troubled by what I'm seeing here. Mr. Cole engaged in documented corporate fraud. When that fraud was discovered by his largest investor, who happened to be his wife, she took legal action to protect her investment. That's not theft. That's corporate governance. Adrian looked like he'd been slapped. The case can proceed to trial if Mr. Cole wishes to pursue it. But I'm warning you now, Mr. Morrison, if this is simply a harassment lawsuit designed to intimidate Ms. Ashford, there will be consequences. Morrison and Adrian huddled with their team. I watched Brett lean in, whispering urgently. Adrian nodded and Morrison stood. We'll proceed to trial, Your Honor. Very well. I'll see you all in 6 months. She banged her gavel. This hearing is adjourned. As we filed out of the courtroom, Brett caught up to me in the hallway. Enjoy your victory, he said quietly. It won't last. Is that a threat, Brett? It's a promise. You think you've won because you've got money and lawyers. But you're forgetting something important. What's that? People like Adrian, people like me, we don't lose to people like you. The world doesn't work that way. I stepped closer to him, close enough that Malcolm tensed beside me. People like me? You mean black women who refuse to stay in the box you've built for us? Women who have the audacity to be smarter and richer than the men who try to control them. Brett's smile was cold. I mean people who don't understand their place. You should have stayed hidden, Eden. You were safer that way. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. There are powerful people who don't appreciate what you've done. Powerful people who think Adrian was wronged. And powerful people have long memories. Malcolm stepped between us. Mr. Whitmore, I suggest you step away from my client. Brett smirked but backed off. See you at trial, Eden. Let's see how sympathetic you look when we're done with you. After he left, Malcolm looked at me with concern. That sounded like more than legal posturing. It was. He basically just told me there's a group of wealthy men who see me as a threat. Do you want increased security? I want you to find out exactly who's bankrolling Adrian's lawsuit. Every investor. Every supporter. Every connection. If they want to come after me, I want to know who they are first. That night, I sat in my penthouse with my children and my mother, processing everything that had happened. They're not going to stop, my mother said. These men. They're going to keep pushing until you back down or they destroy you. Then they're going to be pushing for a very long time. Because I'm not backing down. Baby, I'm worried. Not about the lawsuit, you'll win that easily. But about what happens after. If these men really see you as a threat, then they're right to see me as a threat. Because I am. I looked at my sleeping children. I'm a threat to every man who thinks he can throw away his family without consequences. I'm a threat to every system that tells women to make themselves small. I'm a threat to every power structure built on the assumption that money and connections trump truth and justice. That's a lot of enemies to make. Good. Let them know who they're dealing with. But late that night, after my mother had gone to bed and the triplets were asleep, I stood at my window looking out at the city and felt the weight of what I'd taken on. Adrian wasn't just fighting for his company. He was fighting for a narrative. A narrative where men like him were victims of women like me. Where my success was threatening because it challenged everything they believed about who deserved power. And he had support. Real support from people with resources and connections. This wasn't just a divorce or a business dispute anymore. This was a test case for something much bigger. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. They're going to destroy you. Drop the lawsuit and disappear or lose everything. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I deleted it and blocked the number. They wanted me to be afraid. To back down. To disappear again like I had 3 years ago. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. I was fighting back. And I was going to win. The threat started small. A suspicious car parked outside my building for hours at a time. Hang-up calls to my personal line at odd hours. A photographer catching me taking the triplets to a pediatrician appointment. The photos showing up on a gossip blog with the caption, "Billionaire Mom or Corporate Shark?" Malcolm increased security immediately. Armed guards in the lobby. A second security vehicle following whenever I left the building. Background checks on every new person who came near me or the children. This is escalating, he said during our daily briefing. Whoever's behind this, they're trying to make you feel unsafe. Who have you identified so far? He pulled up files on his tablet. Adrian's lawsuit is being funded by a consortium of investors. Brett Whitmore is the public face, but the real money is coming from someone else. Who? Dominic Hartwell. I knew that name. Dominic had been at my house the night Adrian kicked me out. He'd been one of the voices telling Adrian I was holding him back. What's his stake in this? Dominic runs an old money investment fund. Very exclusive. Very traditional. He's been trying to break into the tech sector for years, but keeps getting outmaneuvered by younger, more diverse investors. Malcolm paused. Specifically, he lost 3 major deals to companies in your portfolio. So this is personal for him. It's ideological. He sees you as everything that's wrong with the new economy. A black woman with money and power who doesn't defer to men like him. Taking you down would send a message. What kind of message? That there are still consequences for challenging the old guard. I looked at the photos Malcolm had compiled. Dominic meeting with Adrian. Dominic having lunch with Brett. Dominic entering the offices of Morrison and Associates, the firm representing Adrian. He's orchestrating all of this. And he has resources. Real resources. The kind that can make life very difficult. Then we need to make his life difficult right back. Over the next few days, I used my network to dig into Dominic Hartwell's business dealings. What I found was fascinating. Dominic's investment fund was struggling. He'd made several bad bets on traditional industries that were being disrupted by tech. He'd lost major clients to competitors. And he was facing pressure from his own investors to modernize or step aside. In other words, Dominic was desperate. And desperate men made mistakes. I was compiling evidence of Dominic's involvement when my lawyer called with bad news. Eden, Adrian's team just filed an amended complaint. They're adding new allegations. What kind of allegations? They're claiming you're an unfit mother. That your focus on business means you're neglecting the triplets. They're asking for full custody. My blood ran cold. On what grounds? They're citing the hours you work, the fact that you have nannies, and David paused. They're claiming that exposing the children to your vendetta against their father creates an unhealthy environment. That's insane. I have full-time help because I'm a single mother running multiple companies. And I've never said a negative word about Adrian in front of the children. They're 4 months old. I know. But it's a strategic move. They're trying to hit you where it hurts most. And it was working. The thought of someone trying to take my children, the children Adrian had thrown away, made me feel physically sick. What do? We fight it. We document your parenting. We show that the children are thriving. We demonstrate that you've never denied Adrian access. He simply hasn't sought it properly. David's voice softened. Eden, this is a pressure tactic. They're trying to make you so afraid of losing the kids that you'll settle the business lawsuit. I won't settle. I know. But you need to be prepared for this to get uglier. That afternoon, I came home to find my mother in tears. What happened? She handed me her phone. A news article. Eden Ashford's dark secret. Friends say she's always been manipulative. The article was full of anonymous quotes from people who claimed to have known me before I disappeared. Each quote painted me as calculating, cold, willing to do anything for power. This is all lies, I said, reading through it. I don't even know who these people supposedly are. It doesn't matter. People will believe it. She was right. The article was already being shared across social media. People who'd never met me were commenting on my character, my motives, my fitness as a mother. The narrative was shifting. I wasn't the wronged wife anymore. I was the scheming billionaire who'd trapped an innocent man. My phone rang. Tyler, have you seen the article? Just read it. It's a hit piece. Completely fabricated. I've known you since we were kids, Eden. You've never been anything like what they're describing. Tell that to the internet. I'm working on it. I've got contacts at 3 major publications. We're going to push back with the truth. Thank you. But Eden, you need to know, this is going to get worse before it gets better. Dominic and his friends, they're playing for keeps. He was right. Over the next week, 3 more articles appeared. Each one adding to the narrative that I was manipulative, controlling, possibly even dangerous. Sources close to Adrian Cole say he lived in fear of his wife's temper. Former employees claim Eden Ashford ruled her companies through intimidation. Child psychologists question whether billionaire lifestyle is healthy for infant triplets. None of it was true. But truth didn't matter when the lies were more interesting. My company started feeling the pressure too. 3 clients suddenly terminated contracts, citing vague concerns about reputation management. 2 board members from my smaller holdings resigned, saying they didn't want to be associated with controversy. Even my charitable foundation was affected. A gala I'd been planning for months lost half its sponsors overnight. They're trying to destroy everything you've built, Patricia said during an emergency meeting. Not just your relationship with Adrian, but your entire professional reputation. How much damage are we looking at financially? If this continues, we could lose 20 to 30% of our client base. Some investors are getting nervous. The negative publicity is affecting stock prices in our public holdings. Millions of dollars. Possibly tens of millions. All because I dared to stand up for myself. But the worst was yet to come. I was feeding Zara one morning when Malcolm rushed in, his face grim. Eden, we have a problem. Child Protective Services is here. What? Someone filed a complaint, claiming the children are being neglected. I looked down at Zara, healthy and content in my arms. At Morlan and Caleb, playing happily on their activity mat with my mother watching them. This is absurd. I know. But they're legally required to investigate every complaint. The CPS worker was a tired-looking woman in her 40s named Sandra Mills. She walked through my penthouse, taking notes, asking questions about the children's care. Who feeds them? I do, primarily. We have night nurses to help with the overnight feedings so I can get some sleep, but I handle most of the daytime care. And when you're working? I have a nanny, Carmen, who's been with us since the children were born. She's fully qualified, background checked, CPR certified. Sandra made notes. The complaint alleged that the children are often left alone with staff while you attend to business matters. I'm a working mother. Yes, I have help. That doesn't mean my children are neglected. She examined each baby carefully, checked their weight against growth charts, looked at their medical records, inspected the nursery, the kitchen, every corner of our home. After 2 hours, she finally spoke. Mrs. Cole. Ms. Ashford. I'm divorced. Ms. Ashford, I see no evidence of neglect. Your children are healthy, well cared for, and clearly thriving. However, I do need to note that this complaint came with some very specific allegations. Whoever filed it had detailed knowledge of your household routine. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? They knew about your nanny's schedule, your night nurses, even what time you typically feed the babies. She looked at me carefully. That suggests someone with inside access to your home. After she left, I gathered my stuff. Carmen the nanny. The 2 night nurses, Maria and Hannah. My housekeeper, Jean. My mother. Someone has been giving information about this household to people who are trying to hurt me, I said. I need to know if any of you have been approached. If anyone has asked you questions about me or the children. They all shook their heads, looking genuinely confused and concerned. Think carefully. A reporter? Someone claiming to be from a parenting magazine? Anyone asking questions that seemed innocent at the time? Hannah, one of the night nurses, raised her hand hesitantly. There was a woman at the coffee shop near here. A few weeks ago. She said she was a new mom too, asked about my work. I thought she was just being friendly. What did you tell her? Just general things. That I work nights helping with triplets. That they're beautiful babies. That you're very involved despite being busy. She looked stricken. Did I do something wrong? No. You were being kind. But that woman was probably gathering intelligence. Malcolm was already pulling up security footage, tracking Hannah's movements, trying to identify the mysterious woman at the coffee shop. What he found made my blood run cold. The woman Hannah had talked to was Natasha, Adrian's ex-girlfriend. The woman who'd supposedly wanted to help me. Who'd sent me information about Adrian's activities. She'd been playing both sides. I called Natasha immediately. She answered on the first ring, sounding nervous. Eden. You've been feeding information to Adrian's lawyers. Silence. The CPS complaint. The articles about my routine. The details about my staff. That was all you. I didn't have a choice, she said finally, her voice breaking. They have something on me. Dominic, he knows things. Things that could destroy my career. So you sold me out. I tried to only give them harmless information. Things that wouldn't really hurt you. But they kept pushing for more. Harmless? Natasha, they tried to take my children. I didn't know they were going to do that. I swear, I thought they just wanted details for the lawsuit. What does Dominic have on you? She hesitated. My consulting business isn't entirely legitimate. Some of my clients, the invoices are inflated. It's basically money laundering for corporate tax evasion. Dominic found out. He said he'd report me unless I cooperated. So you chose to betray me instead of facing consequences for your own fraud. I'm sorry. I really am. But I can't go to prison. Neither can I. But that's exactly what they're trying to arrange. I hung up and immediately called David. We have a mole problem. Natasha's been working for the other side. Can you prove it? I can prove she's been in contact with Adrian's legal team. Malcolm's pulling phone records now. But more importantly, we can use this. If Natasha's feeding them information, we can feed her false information. You want to set a trap. I want them to show their hand completely. Make them so confident they've won that they get careless. Over the next few days, I carefully orchestrated a disinformation campaign. I had conversations near Hannah, knowing she'd mention them to Natasha. Conversations about being overwhelmed. About considering settling. About maybe stepping back from the company to focus on the children. I made sure Natasha overheard through the staff grapevine that I was having financial trouble. That the negative publicity was hurting my companies more than I'd admitted. That I was scared. And I watched as Adrian's team took the bait. Morrison filed a motion asking for an expedited trial date, claiming I was attempting to liquidate assets before the case concluded. Dominic gave an interview to a business publication suggesting that my empire was crumbling. Brett started posting on social media about justice being served. They thought they were winning. Thought I was breaking under the pressure. They had no idea I was setting them up. But the personal toll was real. Even though the fear was manufactured for their benefit, playing the role of a woman breaking down was exhausting. I'd lost weight. Wasn't sleeping well. Jumped at every unexpected noise. The constant pressure, the threats, the attacks on my character and my parenting, it was all taking a real psychological toll, even though I knew it was strategic. My mother noticed. Baby, you're not okay. I'm fine. You're not. You're running yourself into the ground trying to fight these men while raising 3 infants. Something's got to give. Nothing's giving. I can handle this. At what cost? I didn't have an answer for that. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night. I was home alone with the triplets. My mother had a doctor's appointment. Carmen had the evening off, and I'd sent the night nurses away because I wanted some time with just my babies. I was feeding Caleb when I heard glass breaking downstairs. My heart stopped. The security system should have alerted. Malcolm's team should have called. But my phone was silent. I carefully put Caleb in his crib and grabbed my phone to call Malcolm. No signal. Someone had jammed it. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Moving as quietly as I could, I went to the nursery door and locked it. Then I opened the panic app Malcolm had installed on my phone. It worked on a different frequency than regular cell service. The footsteps got closer. I positioned myself between the door and my babies, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my chest. The doorknob turned. Someone was trying to get in. I know you're in there, Eden. A man's voice. Not Adrian. Not Brett. Someone I didn't recognize. We just want to talk. The police are on their way, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. No, they're not. Your security system is offline. Your phones don't work. We have about 10 minutes before anyone notices. Behind me, Moreland started to cry. Then Zara. Then Caleb. All 3 of my babies, sensing my fear. What do you want? Dominic wants you to understand something. You're out of your depth. These games you're playing with the lawsuit, trying to destroy Adrian Cole, they end now. Or what? Or accidents happen. To people. To buildings. To children. The threat against my babies made something inside me snap. You touch my children and there isn't a place on earth you can hide from me. The man laughed. Tough talk from a woman locked in a nursery. Drop the lawsuit. Disappear again. Or next time, we won't just talk. I heard his footsteps retreating. Heard the sound of my front door closing. 2 minutes later, my phone's signal returned. Immediately, it started ringing. Malcolm. Eden. Are you okay? The system just came back online and showed a breach. Someone was in my home. They threatened my children. I'm 3 minutes away. Don't open the door for anyone but me. Those 3 minutes felt like hours. I sat on the floor of the nursery, all 3 babies in my arms, shaking. They'd broken into my home, threatened my children, shown me that all my security, all my money, all my power, none of it could keep us completely safe. When Malcolm arrived with a full security team, they swept the entire penthouse. Found where the intruder had disabled the security system. Found footprints. Found evidence that someone had been planning this for weeks. We're moving you, Malcolm said. Tonight. This location is compromised. Where? I have a safe house. It's off the books. No one knows about it except me. I looked around the nursery I'd carefully designed. The home I'd built for my children. The life I'd been trying to protect. They're not going to stop, I said quietly. No, they're not. Then neither am I. We packed up the essentials and left within the hour. My mother met us at the safe house, a luxurious but anonymous condo in a building Malcolm's security company owned. As I settled the babies into their temporary home, I called David. They crossed a line tonight, breaking into my home, threatening my children. I want Dominic Hartwell destroyed. Eden, we need to be smart about this. I don't want to be smart. I want him to understand what happens when you threaten my family. If we go after him directly, we could compromise the lawsuit against Adrian. I don't care about the lawsuit anymore. Adrian is a puppet. Dominic is pulling the strings. I want the puppet master. David was quiet for a moment. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Dominic has spent his whole life believing his money and connections make him untouchable. I'm going to show him what real power looks like. I spent the rest of that night making calls. To business partners. To journalists. To competitors who'd been hurt by Dominic's ruthless tactics over the years. And I learned something interesting. Dominic's investment fund was more than just struggling. It was on the verge of collapse. He'd made several illegal trades to cover losses. He'd lied to investors about returns. He'd even diverted client funds to his personal accounts. He was committing fraud on a scale that made Adrian's expense account padding look like shoplifting. And I had evidence. How did you get this? Patricia asked when I showed her the financial records. I have friends in interesting places. Friends who've been waiting for someone to finally take down Dominic Hartwell. If we release this, he goes to prison. His fund collapses. And everyone backing Adrian's lawsuit suddenly has much bigger problems to worry about. You're sure? I thought about my babies, sleeping in the next room. About the fear I'd felt hearing an intruder in our home. About every threat, every lie, every attempt to destroy me. I've never been more sure of anything. The next morning, I hand-delivered a package to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Inside was detailed documentation of Dominic Hartwell's securities fraud, investor deception, and illegal trading practices. I also sent copies to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. And just to make sure the message was clear, I sent one more copy to the Wall Street Journal. By noon, Dominic's offices were being raided by federal agents. By evening, he was under arrest. And by the next morning, everyone who'd been supporting Adrian's lawsuit was running for cover, trying to distance themselves from Dominic's scandal. Brett called me, his voice tight with anger. You did this. I exposed a criminal. That's what good citizens do. Dominic had nothing to do with Adrian's case. Dominic was bankrolling Adrian's case. Dominic broke into my home and threatened my children. Dominic made this personal. I just responded in kind. You're going to regret this. Probably not. But you might want to check your own financial records, Brett. The FBI tends to look closely at anyone associated with cases like this. He hung up. 2 days later, Adrian's legal team filed a motion to withdraw from the case. Morrison and Associates didn't want to be connected to Dominic's scandal. Adrian was alone. Again. But I wasn't celebrating yet. Because I knew that cornered animals were the most dangerous. And Adrian was about to get very, very desperate. Adrian showed up at the safe house 3 days after Dominic's arrest. I don't know how he found us. Malcolm's security was supposed to be airtight. But there he was at 7 in the morning, standing in the lobby, asking to see me. Malcolm called up. Adrian Cole is here. He says he needs to talk to you. He's alone, unarmed, and he looks— Malcolm paused. He looks broken, Eden. I should have said no. Should have had Malcolm escort him out. But something in Malcolm's voice made me hesitate. Send him up. But stay close. Already planning on it. I was feeding Moreland when Adrian walked through the door. He'd lost more weight since the hearing. His expensive suit hung loose on his frame. His eyes were bloodshot, his face pale and haggard. He stopped when he saw me holding our daughter, and I watched his face crumble. She's so big, he whispered. They're all so big. Moreland was nearly 5 months old now. She could hold her head up, track objects with her eyes, smile at faces. She'd grown and changed so much in the time since Adrian had thrown us away. Children do that. They grow whether you're around or not. Can I— his voice broke. Can I hold her? Every instinct told me to say no. This man had kicked us out. Had sued me. Had stood by while his friends threatened my children. But he was still their father. And the look on his face was pure anguish. Sit down. Support her head. I handed Moreland to Adrian, watching carefully. He held her like she was made of glass, his hands shaking. Hi, baby girl, he said softly. I'm your daddy. I know you don't know me, but I'm your daddy. Moreland stared at him with solemn eyes. She didn't cry, but she didn't smile either. She was looking at a stranger. I'm sorry, Adrian said, and I realized he was crying. I'm so sorry. To you, to your sisters, to your brother. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I threw you away. I'm sorry I was such a coward that I let other people tell me you weren't important. I sat down across from him, saying nothing. I didn't know about Dominic, he continued, still looking at Moreland. I swear I didn't know what he was planning. The lawsuit was supposed to just be about the company. I didn't know he was going to threaten you. Threaten them. But you knew he was funding your legal battle. You knew Brett and Dominic were pushing you to paint me as a villain. You went along with all of it. I was angry. I was humiliated. The whole world was talking about how my wife had secretly been a billionaire, how I'd been too stupid to see it, how everything I'd built was because of you. He finally looked up at me. Do you know how that felt? Finding out that every success I'd celebrated was actually your doing. Do you know how it felt watching you celebrate those successes while never acknowledging my contribution? Sitting at dinner parties where men praised your brilliance while I stood there knowing I'd made the connections that sealed those deals? Being introduced as Adrian Cole's wife when I had more money and business experience than everyone in the room combined. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. You wanted to believe you were a self-made genius. You wanted the story where you overcame the odds and built an empire. My existence complicated that narrative, so you ignored it. Adrian looked back down at Moreland. I've lost everything. The company. My reputation. My friends, if they were ever really friends. Dominic's arrested and everyone who supported me is running away. Even my lawyer quit. What do you want from me, Adrian? Sympathy. I want to know how to fix this. How to be a father to them. How to— he swallowed hard. How to not be the villain of this story. You can't fix it. Not the way you want to. You can't go back and make different choices. You can't undo kicking us out. You can't erase the lawsuit or the lies or the pain you caused. Then what can I do? I looked at this broken man holding our daughter, and I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, I wasn't ready for that, might never be ready for that. But something else. Something like exhaustion mixed with clarity. You can start telling the truth. The real truth. Not the version Brett and Dominic convinced you of. Not the story where you're the victim. The truth about what you did and why you did it. And then you can start being a father. Not because you feel guilty. Not because you want to rehabilitate your image. But because you have 3 children who deserve a parent who actually shows up for them. Moreland started to fuss, and I took her back from Adrian. She settled immediately in my arms, and I saw the hurt flash across his face. She doesn't know me. No, she doesn't. That's on you. Caleb started crying from the nursery, and I stood to get him. When I came back with both babies, I found Adrian staring at the 3rd crib where Zara was still sleeping. "Can I ask you something?" he said quietly. "What? Why didn't you tell me?" "About the money. About who you really were. If you'd just been honest from the beginning, you would have what? Treated me as an equal? Respected my business expertise? Or would you have been intimidated and resentful like you are now?" He didn't answer. "I didn't tell you because I wanted to be loved for myself, not my bank account. I wanted a partner, not someone who saw me as a meal ticket or a threat. And for a while, I thought I had that with you. You did. I did love you. You loved the version of me that made you feel good about yourself. The supportive wife who made you look successful. The quiet partner who didn't challenge you. But the real me? The woman with billions of dollars and decades of business experience? You couldn't handle her." Adrian stood up and walked to the window. "My mother came to see me yesterday." I tensed. What did Margaret want? To tell me I was an idiot. To explain that she'd raised me to value the wrong things. To beg me to stop the lawsuit and try to be a real father. He turned back to me. "She said you were willing to let her meet the babies. Supervised visits." "I am. Provisionally. She's shown genuine remorse and a willingness to change. More than I can say for you. I want to change. I need to. I don't know how. Start with therapy. Actual therapy, not just crisis management. Figure out why you needed to prove yourself so badly that you destroyed your family. Work on that. And then, maybe, we can talk about a relationship with your children. And you? Is there any chance?" "No. We're done, Adrian. That ship didn't just sail, it sank. But you can still be a father. That doesn't require us being together." He nodded slowly, accepting what I already knew he'd known when he came here. "I should go." "Wait." I walked to my desk and pulled out a folder. "Before you leave, there's something you need to know." "What's this?" "Your company. Cole Logistics. I'm stepping down as CEO." His eyes widened. "What?" "Why? Because I don't want it. I never wanted your company, Adrian. I wanted my husband to succeed. When that stopped being an option, I wanted to protect my investment and make sure you faced consequences for your fraud. I've done both. So who's taking over?" "A management team I trust. Patricia as CFO. A new CEO from outside the company. And you, if you want it. Me? 20% equity. A board seat. Operational input on major decisions. But no executive authority until you prove you can handle it. The company will be run by professionals who actually know what they're doing, but you'll have a voice." "Why would you do this?" "Because that company was your dream before it became your weapon. Because my children deserve a father who has purpose and dignity. And because I'm tired of fighting. I don't want to destroy you, Adrian. I just want you to understand what you did and become someone better." He stared at the documents. "What about the lawsuit?" "Drop it. Admit publicly that you made mistakes. Stop letting Brett and other people tell you who to be. Do those things and we can co-parent our children. Keep fighting and I'll bury you so deep you'll never see daylight again. That's the choice? Surrender or total destruction?" No. That's the choice between accountability and denial. Between being a father or being a cautionary tale. Choose wisely. Adrian took the folder with shaking hands. I need time to think about this. You have 24 hours. After that, the offer disappears and we go to trial. Your choice. After he left, Malcolm came upstairs. You're really giving him the company back? Not giving. Offering him a role in it. There's a difference. He doesn't deserve it. Probably not. But my children deserve a father who's more than a broken, bitter man. This gives him a chance to be that. And if he wastes the chance, then at least I'll know I tried. That night, I sat with the triplets and thought about choices. The choice to hide who I was when I met Adrian. The choice to support him from the shadows. The choice to stay after the first signs of trouble. The choice to have children with him. The choice to fight back when he threw us away. Every choice had led me here. To a safe house with 3 babies and an empire I'd built while pretending to be nobody. Your father has a choice to make, I told them as I fed Zara. He can keep being the man who threw us away, or he can become someone new. Someone better. I hope he chooses the second one. For your sake. Caleb made a gurgling sound that might have been agreement. My phone rang. Tyler. Eden, I just heard something through the network. Adrian met with his remaining legal team this morning. I know. He came here afterward. Did he tell you what they discussed? No. Why? Because apparently he's considering taking your offer. But Brett is pushing him hard not to. Telling him it's a trap. That you're trying to humiliate him. Of course Brett is. He needs Adrian to keep fighting so he can continue his crusade against powerful women. There's more. Brett's been talking to reporters. Trying to sell a story about how you manipulated Adrian from day one. How you targeted him specifically because you wanted to control someone. Let him talk. After Dominic's arrest, nobody's going to believe Brett's conspiracy theories. Don't be so sure. Brett's old money, old connections. He's got credibility in certain circles. Then I'll destroy his credibility in all circles. I spent the next several hours making calls. To journalists who knew Brett's reputation for dishonesty. To business partners who'd been burned by his schemes. To ex-girlfriends who had stories about his treatment of women. By morning, I had a file on Brett Whitmore that would make his connection to Dominic's fraud look like a parking ticket. But I didn't release it. Not yet. First, I wanted to see what Adrian would choose. The answer came at 8 p.m. the next night. An email from Adrian with a single attachment. It was a press release. Adrian Cole announces settlement in business dispute, takes responsibility for mistakes. I read through it carefully. Adrian was dropping the lawsuit, acknowledging that he'd made errors in judgment, confirming that Cole Logistics would continue under new management with his involvement in a limited capacity, and thanking me for my support of the company over the years. It wasn't everything I'd wanted. He didn't fully admit to the fraud or the abandonment. But it was honest. And it was a start. My phone rang. Adrian. I'm taking your offer, he said without preamble. All of it. The company structure. The therapy. The supervised visits. All of it. What changed your mind? I want to see my mother again. She showed me pictures of the triplets. From when you've been letting her visit. And I realized I have 3 children who are growing up without me. Not because you're keeping them from me, but because I'm not there. Because I chose my ego over my family. And I'm tired of being that person. I'm tired of losing. I'm tired of being angry. His voice broke. I want to hold my children and have them know who I am. I want to be someone they can be proud of. I don't know if that's possible, but I want to try. It's possible. But it's going to take time and real work. I know. I've already found a therapist. Started seeing him yesterday. He says I have a lot to unpack. That's an understatement. Eden, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I destroyed what we had. But I need you to know I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. Not because I lost everything, but because I hurt you and the babies. Because I was so busy trying to be important that I threw away the only things that actually mattered. I closed my eyes, feeling something release in my chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. The possibility that someday, the anger might fade enough to let something else grow in its place. I accept your apology. And I'm willing to work with you on being co-parents. But Adrian, the minute you backslide, the minute you let people like Brett convince you I'm the enemy, this offer disappears. I understand. And I fired Brett. Told him I don't want his friendship or his advice. He's toxic, and I should have seen it years ago. Good. When can I see them? The babies? I'll have my lawyer contact you about setting up supervised visits. We'll start small. An hour a week with a family therapist present. If that goes well, we can expand from there. Thank you. You don't know what this means. I do, actually. I know exactly what it means. I'm choosing to give you a chance because those 3 children deserve every opportunity to know their father. Don't waste it. After I hung up, I sat in the quiet of the safe house and let myself feel everything I'd been holding back. The fear from the break-in. The exhaustion from weeks of fighting. The grief over the marriage that had died. The hope that maybe finally we could all move forward. My mother came in and sat beside me. Is it over? The worst of it? Yes. The work of co-parenting with someone who hurt me? That's just beginning. You did it, baby. You stood up for yourself and your children. You faced down men with all the power and money in the world. And you won. Did I? Sometimes it doesn't feel like winning. That's because real victory isn't clean and simple like in the movies. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes you have to make choices that hurt. But you protected your babies. You held on to your integrity. You refused to be diminished. That's winning, even when it doesn't feel like it. The triplets chose that moment to all start crying at once, that mysterious synchronization that happens with multiples sometimes. My mother laughed. And that's your victory celebration. 3 babies demanding to be fed. Glamorous life I'm living. The best kind of life. As I fed my children that night, I thought about the woman I'd been 5 months ago. Pregnant, exhausted, trying to hold together a marriage that was already dead. That woman had been broken when Adrian kicked her out. But she'd also been awakened. The billionaire I'd buried to play housewife had come roaring back. And she'd reminded everyone, especially herself, that you can't keep a powerful woman down. You can hurt her, threaten her, try to destroy her. But if she's truly powerful, she'll rise from those ashes stronger than before. Malcolm knocked on the door frame. Press release is going live in 10 minutes. You ready for this? As ready as I'll ever be. There's going to be fallout. People questioning why you're giving Adrian anything. Feminists angry that you didn't destroy him completely. His supporters claiming this proves they were right all along. Let them talk. I'm not making decisions based on what other people think anymore. I'm doing what's right for my children. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Thank you, Malcolm. The press release went live at 9 p.m. Within minutes, my phone was exploding with calls and texts. Reporters wanting comments. Friends offering support. Business partners asking what this meant for coal logistics. I ignored all of them. Instead, I sat with my 3 babies and sang them lullabies until they fell asleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Tomorrow, I'd have to navigate the public reaction, manage the transition at Coal Logistics, and start the complex process of co-parenting with someone I no longer trusted. But tonight, I just held my children and felt grateful. Grateful that we were safe. Grateful that the immediate danger had passed. Grateful that I'd found my strength again. Tyler sent a text, proud of you. Offering him a way back was brave. I typed back, or stupid. Time will tell. Same thing sometimes. Dinner this weekend? I promise no business talk. Just 2 old friends catching up. I smiled. I'd like that. Rebecca Martin, the journalist who'd written the article about me, sent an email. I'd love to do a follow-up piece about what comes next, about rebuilding after betrayal, about being a single mother running a business empire. Interested? I read the email twice, then replied, yes. But I want to talk about more than just my story. I want to talk about all the women who've been diminished by partners who couldn't handle their success. I want this to mean something. Her response came immediately. That's exactly the story I want to write. My mother had taken Caleb to change him when my phone rang one more time. An unknown number, but something made me answer. Hello, Ms. Ashford? This is Detective Sarah Chadwick with the Portland Police. I'm calling about the break-in at your residence last week. Yes, we've made an arrest. The man who broke in has agreed to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence. He's willing to testify about who hired him. Let me guess. Dominic Hartwell. Actually, no. It was Brett Whitmore. Apparently, Dominic knew nothing about the break-in. That was all Brett acting on his own. I sat down slowly. Brett hired someone to threaten my children? According to our suspect, Mr. Whitmore was escalating because he was afraid you were winning. He thought if he scared you enough, you'd back down. He threatened 5-month-old babies because he was losing an argument. Yes, ma'am. We'll need you to come in and give a formal statement. And we'll be arresting Mr. Whitmore within the next few hours. After she hung up, I sat there processing this information. Brett, charming, connected, old money Brett, had crossed a line even Dominic hadn't crossed. He'd threatened my children directly, and now he was going to pay for it. I pulled up the file I'd compiled on Brett. All his dirty secrets, all his illegal deals, all the women he'd hurt over the years. Then I sent it to Detective Chadwick with a note. You might find this useful in your investigation. Malcolm came back upstairs. I just heard. They got Brett. Good. Are you okay? I paused, checking in with myself. I'm tired. I'm angry. But I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. Because Brett thought he could intimidate me into silence, and instead he's going to prison. That's the Eden I know. The scary one? The strong one. The one who doesn't back down even when people threaten what she loves most. I looked at my sleeping children. I would burn the world down for them. I know. Brett's about to find that out the hard way. As I settled into bed that night, I thought about the impossible choice I'd been facing just days ago. Fight and risk everything or surrender and lose myself. I'd found a third option. I'd fought strategically. I'd protected what mattered. And I'd won without destroying the father of my children in the process. It wasn't the clean victory some people would want. It wasn't the total annihilation Brett and Dominic had deserved. But it was justice. Real justice. The kind where everyone had to face the consequences of their choices, including me. And tomorrow, I'd start building something new. Not the life I'd planned with Adrian. Not the hiding I'd done before. Something better. Something true. A life where I didn't have to choose between being powerful and being loved. Where I could be both. Where my children could see their mother as someone strong and successful and still devoted to them. That was the real victory. And it was just beginning. 6 months later, I stood in the ballroom of the Riverside Hotel, surrounded by Portland's business elite, and prepared to tell my story in front of everyone who mattered. The Cole Logistics Annual Gala had been a tradition since Adrian founded the company. Back when we were married, I'd attended as arm candy, smiling prettily while Adrian networked and took credit for strategies I'd whispered to him over breakfast. Tonight, I was the keynote speaker. The ballroom was packed. Business leaders, investors, journalists, competitors, even some of Adrian's old friends, though notably not Brett. He was awaiting trial for conspiracy and attempted intimidation. And sitting in the front row, looking nervous but present, was Adrian himself. He'd kept his word over the past 6 months. Therapy twice a week. Supervised visits with the triplets that had gradually expanded to unsupervised time. He'd shown up, consistently and humbly, working to become someone his children could be proud of. We weren't friends. We'd never be friends. But we'd found a way to be co-parents that didn't involve lawyers or courts. Next to Adrian sat his mother, Margaret, who had become surprisingly helpful. She visited the triplets weekly, and I'd watched her transform from the judgmental woman who'd worn white to my wedding into a grandmother who got down on the floor to play with her grandchildren. People could change. Not easily. Not quickly. But they could change. You ready for this? Patricia asked, appearing at my elbow. As ready as I'll ever be. It's a friendly crowd. They're here to celebrate the company's success. Coal Logistics had thrived over the past 6 months. Under new management, with proper oversight and financial controls, the company had not only secured the Hartmann contract, but had expanded into 3 new markets. The valuation had hit $1.4 billion. Adrian had a seat on the board, but he learned to listen more than he talked. He'd become a valuable voice on technical matters while leaving strategy to people who actually knew what they were doing. 5 minutes, the event coordinator said. I smoothed down my dress, a stunning emerald green that had cost more than my first car. I was done hiding. Done pretending to be smaller than I was. Tonight, everyone would hear the truth. The lights dimmed. The crowd settled. And I walked onto that stage with my head high. Good evening. My name is Eden Ashford, and I'm the majority shareholder of Coal Logistics. Some of you know me as the woman who stole this company from her husband. Others know me as the billionaire who is hiding in plain sight. Tonight, I want to tell you who I really am and why the story you think you know is only half true. I had their attention. You could have heard a pin drop. 7 years ago, I disappeared from public life. I was 23, I'd just inherited billions from my father, and people were trying to kill me for it. Not metaphorically. Literally. Someone ran my car off the road. Someone broke into my home. Someone made it clear that a young black woman had no business controlling that much wealth and power. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This part of my story hadn't been widely reported. So I vanished. I set up systems to manage my companies remotely, I changed my name, and I became nobody. Just another consultant working ordinary jobs, living an ordinary life. I paused. And then I met Adrian Cole. I saw Adrian shift in his seat, but he kept his eyes on me. Adrian was brilliant and ambitious and full of dreams about changing the world. He was also drowning in debt and about 3 weeks from losing everything. I fell in love with him. And because I loved him, I helped him. Not as Eden Ashford, billionaire heiress, but as Eden Sinclair, supportive girlfriend who happened to know some people. On the screen behind me, images began appearing. The original investment documents from Meridian Holdings. Emails showing my strategic advice. Contracts I'd arranged through my network. I funded Adrian's company with $15 million. I connected him with his first major clients. I guided his expansion strategy. I did all of this while pretending to be nobody important because I wanted to be loved for who I was, not what I had. I looked directly at Adrian. And for a while, it worked. We built something together. We got married. We had 3 beautiful children. More photos appeared. Our wedding. Me pregnant. The triplets as newborns. And then Adrian kicked us out. The ballroom went silent. Our babies were 3 months old. I was 4 months postpartum. And my husband decided that his family was holding him back from the success he deserved. He gave me 10 minutes to pack whatever I could carry and get out of our home. I let that sink in. Watched people in the audience exchange glances. Adrian didn't know he was kicking out a billionaire. He thought he was discarding a burden. A wife who'd let herself go. Children who were too demanding. He thought he was freeing himself to achieve greatness. What he didn't know was that every success he'd celebrated, I had made possible. The company he thought was his? I'd funded it, built it, sustained it, all while pretending to be the quiet, supportive wife. The screen showed financial documents. proof of my ownership, evidence of my involvement in every major decision. So when Adrian threw away his family, he threw away the foundation of everything he'd built. And when I took operational control of coal logistics, I wasn't stealing his company. I was taking back what had always been mine. I could see people processing this. Journalists making notes. Business leaders nodding and understanding. But here's the part that might surprise you. I'm not here tonight to destroy Adrian Cole. I'm here to tell you that people can change. That accountability and redemption are possible. That sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's transformation. Adrian was staring at me now, his eyes glistening. Over the past 6 months, Adrian has done the work. He's faced his mistakes. He's gone to therapy. He's shown up for his children consistently and humbly. He's learned to be a board member instead of a dictator. He's become someone I can co-parent with, if not someone I can trust completely. I gestured to him. Stand up, Adrian. He hesitated, then stood, looking uncertain. Adrian Cole made terrible choices. He hurt his family. He committed fraud. He let toxic people convince him that power mattered more than love. But he's spent the last 6 months making different choices. Better choices. And tonight, I want to publicly acknowledge that growth. Adrian's face crumbled. I saw tears streaming down his cheeks. This company is thriving now. Not because of one person's genius, but because of a team of dedicated professionals who believe in integrity and accountability. Adrian is part of that team. Not the leader. Not the hero. Just a member of a team working towards something bigger than any individual ego. I turned back to the audience. I'm telling you all of this because I'm tired of the narrative that powerful women are threats, that we're manipulative or scheming or dangerous. The truth is, we're just people trying to build lives and protect what we love. And when someone tries to destroy us, we fight back. Not because we're vindictive, but because we refuse to accept being diminished. The screen behind me changed to show photos of my children. Morlin, Caleb, and Zara at 6 months old, their faces bright with curiosity and joy. These are my children. Morlin, Caleb, and Zara. They're the reason I fought so hard. The reason I exposed fraud and faced down threats and refused to back down even when powerful men tried to intimidate me. Because they deserve a mother who shows them that strength isn't about dominating others, it's about standing up for yourself and the people you love. I could see women in the audience nodding, some wiping their eyes. There's one more thing I need to address tonight. 6 months ago, someone broke into my home and threatened my children. That person was hired by Brett Whitmore, who thought he could scare me into silence. He was wrong. Because nothing is more dangerous than a mother protecting her babies. The screen showed Brett's mugshot, his arrest record, the charges against him. Brett Whitmore is facing 15 years in federal prison for conspiracy, intimidation, and securities fraud. Dominic Hartwell is already serving 12 years for his financial crimes. These men thought their money and connections made them untouchable. They were wrong. I looked around the ballroom, meeting eyes. Let this be a lesson. You can underestimate a woman who's hiding her power. You can dismiss her, diminish her, try to destroy her. But when she stops hiding and fights back with everything she has, you lose. Every time. The applause started slowly, then built. People standing. Not everyone, some of Adrian's old allies stayed seated, their faces tight with disapproval. But enough. More than enough. I raised my hand for quiet. I have one final announcement. Effective immediately, I'm stepping down from active management of coal logistics. The company is in good hands with our current executive team. I'll remain as a board member and major shareholder, but my focus is shifting. Confused murmurs. People hadn't expected this. I'm launching a new foundation. The Eden Ashford Foundation for Women's Economic Empowerment. We'll provide funding, mentorship, and legal support for women who've been economically abused, professionally undermined, or financially controlled by partners. We'll help them rebuild their lives and reclaim their power. The screen showed the foundation's mission statement and initial programs. Every woman who's been told she's too ambitious. Every mother who's been treated like a burden. Every professional who's had her ideas stolen by male colleagues. This foundation is for you. We're going to change the narrative. Together. This time, the applause was deafening. I saw women standing, cheering. Even some men, the good ones, joining in. I let it wash over me for a moment, then raised my hand again. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for listening to my truth. And thank you for being part of a community that's willing to grow and change and do better. Enjoy the gala. I walked off the stage to a standing ovation. Backstage, Patricia was grinning. That was perfect. The foundation announcement, genius. You're going to have applications flooding in within hours. Good. Let them come. Tyler appeared, pulling me into a hug. You just changed the conversation about women and power in this city. Maybe in this country. I just told the truth. Which is revolutionary all by itself. Adrian was waiting when I came out of the backstage area. He looked wrecked, but in a good way. Like something had broken open inside him. Can we talk? He asked. Just for a minute? I nodded, and we stepped into a quiet corner. Thank you, he said, for what you said up there. About me changing. About giving me credit for the work I've been doing. I meant it. You have been doing the work. I don't deserve your grace. Probably not. But our children deserve a father who's trying to be better. So I choose to acknowledge when you show up. He took a shaky breath. I've been wanting to tell you something. I've been waiting for the right moment, and I guess this is it. What? I'm seeing someone. A therapist recommended her. She's a single mom too, works in education, has no idea who I am beyond guy who works in logistics. I wanted you to hear it from me before you heard it from someone else. I studied his face. Are you happy? I'm learning to be. She's teaching me what a healthy relationship looks like. What it means to be a partner instead of a project. Good. That's good, Adrian. And you? Tyler Richardson seems to be around a lot lately. I smiled. Tyler and I are friends. Maybe someday more than friends. But right now, I'm focused on my children and my work. The romance can wait. You deserve someone who sees you. All of you. Not just the parts that make them feel important. Yes, I do. I paused. We both deserve better than what we had. Can I ask you something? The night you gave me the choice, the company or total destruction. Why did you give me an out? Because destroying you wouldn't have healed me. It would have just made me someone else who used power as a weapon. I wanted justice, not revenge. There's a difference. What's the difference? Justice holds people accountable and gives them a chance to change. Revenge just creates more pain. I chose justice. For me, for you, for our kids. Adrian nodded slowly. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve that choice. See that you do. Margaret appeared then, looking for Adrian. The triplets sitter just texted. Caleb spit up all over himself and needs a change of clothes. I told her oh. Eden. That speech was extraordinary. Thank you, Margaret. I mean it. What you said about second chances and accountability. That took real courage. She paused. I've been in therapy too, you know. Working through why I raised my son to value the wrong things. It's been difficult. Change usually is. Yes, but necessary. She touched my arm gently. Thank you for letting me be part of their lives. The babies. Being a grandmother to them is the greatest joy I've had in years. They need family who loves them. You're doing that. After they left, I made my way back to the ballroom. The gala was in full swing, people networking, dancing, celebrating. I slipped through the crowd, accepting congratulations and answering questions about the foundation. And then I saw them. 3 women standing together near the bar. One I recognized as a VP from a tech company. Another was a prominent attorney. The third was a woman I'd seen at business events, but never met. They were looking at me with something I recognized immediately. Hope mixed with determination. The look of women who'd been holding themselves back and were finally ready to stop. The attorney approached first. Ms. Ashford? I'm Jennifer Parks. I wanted to thank you for what you said tonight about women being treated as threats when they're just trying to live their lives. You're welcome. My law firm has a pretty serious gender discrimination problem. I've been documenting it for 2 years, but I've been afraid to come forward because I'm the only Black woman partner and I know they'll retaliate. She took a breath. Your foundation. Would it help with something like that? Absolutely. That's exactly what we're here for. Legal support, financial backing, career counseling. Everything you need to fight back safely. The tech VP stepped forward. My male co-founder has been taking credit for my work for 3 years. Our investors think he's the genius, and I'm just the support staff. I've been thinking about leaving, but you built that company and you shouldn't have to give it up because he's a liar, I finished. We can help with that too. The third woman, younger than the others, spoke quietly. My husband controls all our money. I have degrees in finance, but he convinced me to be a stay-at-home mom. Now I want to work again, but I don't even have access to my own bank accounts. And I'm scared. You don't have to be scared anymore, I said gently. That's why I built this. So women like you can escape situations like that and rebuild. More women were gathering now. Listening. Some sharing their own stories in whispers. Stories of being overlooked, undermined, controlled, dismissed. This was why I'd fought so hard. Not just for myself. For all of them. The foundation's website goes live tomorrow, I told the growing crowd. Applications open next week. And I promise you, every single story will be heard. Every woman who reaches out will get support. Because I'm done watching talented, brilliant women make themselves small to accommodate men who can't handle their strength. The applause that followed was different from the polite business applause earlier. This was visceral. Emotional. The sound of women who'd been waiting for someone to say these things out loud. Tyler found me an hour later, standing on the balcony overlooking the city. You started a movement in there, he said. I just told the truth. Sometimes that's all it takes. He leaned on the railing next to me. Are you happy, Eden? Really happy? I thought about that question. 6 months ago, I'd been hiding in a safe house, fighting for my life and my children's future. Now I was here, my kids safe with a trusted sitter, my company thriving, my foundation launching, my truth finally told. I'm getting there, I said honestly. Some days are harder than others. Co-parenting with Adrian is complicated. Building a new life from scratch is exhausting. But yes, I think I'm happy. Or at least, I'm on my way to happy. Good. You deserve it. So do you. How's the dating life of Portland's most eligible bachelor? He laughed. Non-existent. I'm too busy trying to keep up with your business moves. Every time I turn around, you're launching something new. I have a lot of time to make up for. 3 years of hiding. 5 years before that of making myself small. I'm done with that. I can see that. He paused. Can I ask you something? Always. That offer for dinner. Just 2 old friends. Does that offer still stand? I looked at him. Really looked at him. Tyler had been there when I resurfaced. He'd supported me through the lawsuit. He'd never once tried to diminish me or control me or make me smaller. It stands. But Tyler, I'm not ready for anything serious. I have 3 babies. I'm launching a foundation. I'm rebuilding my entire life. I can't be someone's girlfriend right now. I'm not asking you to be. I'm asking if you'd have dinner with someone who's been your friend for 20 years and would like to continue being your friend, regardless of what that looks like. In that case, yes. Absolutely yes. My phone buzzed. A text from the sitter. All 3 babies asleep. Caleb in new outfit, thanks to Grandma. Everything perfect here. I smiled. 6 months ago, I'd been alone with 3 screaming babies and no idea how I'd survive. Now I had help, support, a co-parent who was actually trying, and a grandmother who'd stepped up. Things weren't perfect. They'd never be perfect. But they were good. And getting better. The gala wound down around 11. I said my goodbyes, accepted more congratulations, and promised to follow up with dozens of women who'd approached me about the foundation. Malcolm drove me home, back to my penthouse, which we'd returned to after upgrading security to Fort Knox levels. The safe house had been temporary. This was home. My mother was waiting, sitting in the nursery reading while the triplets slept. "How did it go?" she asked. I told the truth. All of it. And people listened. More than that, they heard. Women, especially. "I think this foundation is going to be bigger than I imagined. Your father would be so proud of you, baby. Not because you're rich or powerful, but because you used what you have to help others. That's what he always wanted for you." I looked at my sleeping children. Morlin with her fist curled near her face. Caleb spread out like a starfish. Zara perfectly still, peaceful. I want them to grow up knowing their mother fought back. That when someone tried to destroy her, she didn't just survive, she thrived. And then she used that strength to help other women do the same. They'll know. Even if they don't remember the details, they'll know what kind of woman their mother is. After my mother left, I sat in the quiet nursery and thought about the journey that had brought me here. The hiding, the betrayal, the fight, the triumph. It hadn't been clean or easy. There had been moments when I'd wanted to give up. Moments when the pressure felt like too much. Moments when I'd wondered if fighting back was worth the cost. But sitting here now, looking at my children, knowing I'd stood up for myself and for them, knowing I'd held powerful men accountable and given other women a path to do the same, it had been worth every difficult moment. My phone lit up with notifications. The foundation website had gone live early. Applications were already flooding in. Women from across the country sharing their stories, asking for help, offering to volunteer. This was just the beginning. I'd spent years hiding. Years being someone I wasn't. Years making myself small to fit into someone else's vision of who I should be. Those years were over. Eden Ashford was done hiding. Done apologizing. Done accepting less than she deserved. And the world was about to learn what happened when you gave a powerful woman a reason to fight. She didn't just win. She changed everything. 18 months after the gala, I stood in the nursery watching my mother help Morlin take her first steps while Caleb cheered from his playpen and Zara clapped her chubby hands together. "Come on, baby girl," my mother coaxed. "You can do it. Come to Grandma." Morlin took 3 wobbly steps before plopping down on her bottom, laughing at her own accomplishment. She did it. I grabbed my phone to record. "Adrian, did you see that?" Adrian's voice came through the baby monitor I'd repurposed as a video call. "I saw. Morlin, you're amazing. Wait until I tell your sisters, wait until I see you this weekend. We'll celebrate." He'd been living in Seattle for the past year, running a tech education nonprofit that taught coding to underprivileged kids. It was good work, meaningful work, and it suited him better than chasing billions ever had. We talked twice a week about the triplets and saw each other every other weekend when he flew down for his parenting time. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. "How's the new program going?" I asked. "We just got funding for 3 more locations. Turns out when you're actually passionate about helping people instead of just making money, good things happen." Imagine that. "Eden, I wanted to ask you something." "Rachel and I," he paused. Rachel was the teacher he'd been dating for over a year now. "We're getting serious. And I wanted to know how you'd feel about the kids meeting her." I'd known this was coming. Had actually been expecting it for months. "I think if she's going to be a consistent part of your life, the kids should know her. But Adrian, if you introduce them to her, it has to be because you're sure. They're too young to remember if things don't work out, but the pattern matters." "I'm sure. She's what you tried to tell me a real partner should be. She challenges me. Supports me. Doesn't let me get away with my garbage." She sounds perfect for you. She is. And Eden? Thank you for giving me the chance to become someone who deserves a woman like her. After we hung up, my mother looked at me carefully. You okay with that? Him moving on. I've been moved on for over a year. I'm happy he found someone good. And I meant it. The anger I'd carried for so long had faded into something more like acceptance. Adrian and I had been wrong for each other. We'd hurt each other. But we'd both grown from it. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. Lunch today? I have news. I smiled. Tyler and I had been dating for 6 months now, taking things slow, figuring out what a relationship looked like when both people were whole and healthy instead of broken and desperate. Can't today. Foundation site visit this morning, board meeting this afternoon. Dinner tomorrow. It's a date. Literally. The Eden Ashford Foundation had exploded beyond my wildest expectations. In 18 months, we'd helped 847 women escape financial abuse, supported 312 women in workplace discrimination lawsuits, and provided startup funding for 156 women-owned businesses. We'd also made enemies. Powerful enemies. Men who didn't like seeing their control challenged. Companies that didn't appreciate being held accountable for discrimination. But we'd made more friends than enemies. And the friends were fierce. Today's site visit was to one of our success stories. Melissa Torres, a woman who'd come to us 14 months ago with nothing but a business plan and dreams of opening a bakery after her husband had controlled every penny she earned for a decade. Now she had 3 locations, 12 employees, and a waiting list for her custom cakes. Eden. Melissa greeted me with a hug when I arrived. Thank you for coming. I wanted you to see what you made possible. You made this possible. I just gave you the tools. You gave me more than tools. You gave me hope. And legal support when my ex tried to sue me for stealing his money to start the business. She shook her head. Your lawyers destroyed his case in about 15 minutes. Good. He deserved it. We toured the bakery, and I met her staff, mostly women, several of them foundation clients who needed second chances and fresh starts. This was what made the long nights worth it. Seeing women thriving, building, creating lives on their own terms. Malcolm appeared as I was leaving. We need to talk. Privately. His serious tone made my stomach drop. What's wrong? Brett Whitmore is getting out. I stopped walking. What? He was supposed to serve at least 10 years. Good behavior. Overcrowding. His lawyers worked some magic. He'll be released in 6 weeks. And you think he's going to come after me? I think he's spent 18 months in prison thinking about who put him there. Yes, I think he's going to come after you. I took a deep breath, pushing down the fear. Then we prepare. Increase security. Alert the authorities. Make sure he knows that if he so much as looks at me or my children wrong, we'll bury him. Already on it. But Eden, you need to be careful. Brett's dangerous, and he has nothing left to lose. Neither do I. And I'm a lot scarier than he is. That afternoon's board meeting was for coal logistics. I still held my seat, though I rarely involved myself in day-to-day operations anymore. But today's meeting was special. Patricia stood to present the quarterly earnings. Revenue is up 32% year over year. The Hartmann contract has exceeded all projections. We've expanded into 4 new markets. And we're on track to hit a $2 billion valuation by year-end. The board erupted in applause. There's one more thing, Patricia continued. We've been approached about going public. An IPO would value the company at approximately $2.5 billion. I glanced at Adrian on the video screen. He looked shocked. That's incredible, he stammered. It is, I agreed. And it's a decision that affects everyone at this table. We need to discuss what's best for the company long term. We spent the next 2 hours debating the pros and cons. The increased capital versus loss of control. The public scrutiny versus the opportunities for growth. In the end, we decided to move forward with the IPO, scheduled for 6 months out. After the meeting, Adrian asked to speak to me privately. An IPO means my shares will be worth hundreds of millions, he said quietly. Money I never would have had without you. Money you earned by doing the work and showing up consistently. Don't diminish that. I'm not. I want you to know I'm going to do something meaningful with it. Set up a trust for the kids. Expand the nonprofit. Maybe even contribute to your foundation. The foundation would welcome that support. Eden, can I tell you something? Something I should have said a long time ago. What's that? You were always the brilliant one. The strategic one. The one who saw 10 steps ahead. I was just too insecure to admit it. Too afraid that acknowledging your intelligence would make me look stupid. He shook his head. And in trying to protect my ego, I destroyed the best thing in my life. We both made mistakes, Adrian. I should have been honest about who I was from the beginning. The foundation of our marriage was built on deception, even if my intentions were good. No, you were protecting yourself. I was protecting my pride. There's a difference. Maybe, but we can't change the past. We can only build a better future. Are you? Building a better future? With Tyler. I smiled. I'm building a future that makes me happy. Tyler's part of that, but he's not all of it. I've learned that lesson, not to define myself by a relationship. Good. You deserve everything, Eden. Everything you want, everything you dream of. And I hope someday I'll be half as good a parent as you are. You're getting there. The kids adore you. Moreland asks for Daddy every time she sees an airplane because she knows you're flying in. His eyes got misty. I didn't know that. She's 18 months old, and she knows her father shows up for her. That's what matters. That evening, Tyler picked me up for dinner at a restaurant we'd been trying to get reservations at for months. So what's the big news? I asked after we'd ordered. I'm launching a new venture capital fund, focused exclusively on women-led businesses. He grinned. Guess who inspired that idea? If you say me, I'm going to throw this breadstick at you. It's absolutely you. Watching what you've built with the foundation, seeing how much untapped talent is out there just waiting for someone to take a chance on them, I want in on that. Tyler, that's amazing. I want you on the advisory board. If you're willing. I'm more than willing. I'm honored. He reached across the table and took my hand. You've changed my perspective on everything, Eden. On business. On power. On what success actually looks like. A year ago, I was just another rich guy making more money. Now I'm thinking about legacy. About impact. About using what I have to help others build something meaningful. That's all you. I just reminded you of who you've always been capable of being. No, that's you being modest. You're a force of nature, Eden Ashford. You're terrifying and inspiring in equal measure. I laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. It's absolutely a compliment. As we ate dinner, Tyler told me about his plans for the fund. The sectors he wanted to focus on. The women he'd already identified as potential investments. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Genuine excitement about building something with a partner who saw me as an equal. Who wasn't threatened by my success. Who wanted to lift others up alongside me. I have news too, I said as dessert arrived. Oh, the foundation is expanding internationally. We're opening offices in London, Toronto, and Lagos. Women everywhere face these same challenges. It's time to go global. That's incredible. Are you ready for that kind of expansion? Probably not. But I've learned that the best things happen when you leap before you're ready. Tyler squeezed my hand. For what it's worth, I believe in you. Everything you touch turns to gold. Not everything. My marriage turned to dust. No, your marriage revealed who you really are. And that woman is unstoppable. When he dropped me off that night, he walked me to my door like he always did. Can I ask you something? He said as we stood in the hallway. Always. What are we doing? You and me. Is this just dating? Is this going somewhere? I don't need an answer tonight, but I'm falling for you, Eden. And I need to know if that's something you're open to. I looked at this man who'd been patient and kind and supportive. who never once tried to control me or diminish me, who celebrated my victories instead of competing with them. I'm falling for you too, I admitted. But Tyler, I need you to understand something. My children come first. Always. My work is demanding. I have enemies who might come after me. My life is complicated. I know all of that. And I'm not asking you to change any of it. I'm just asking if there's room for me in that complicated, demanding, beautiful life you're building. There is. If you're sure that's what you want. He kissed me then, gentle and sure. I've never been more certain of anything. After he left, I went inside to find my mother putting the triplets to bed. They wanted to wait up for you, she said. But they crashed about 20 minutes ago. I looked at my sleeping children. Morlin with her new stuffed elephant. Caleb clutching the blanket his father had sent him. Zara peaceful and perfect. Mom, can I ask you something? Am I doing the right thing? With Tyler? Is it too soon? Should I be focusing just on the kids? Baby, you're allowed to have a life. You're allowed to find love again. The kids need a happy mother, not a martyr. I just don't want to make the same mistakes I made with Adrian. You won't. Because Tyler isn't Adrian. And, more importantly, you're not the woman you were when you met Adrian. You're stronger. Clearer. You know your worth now. She was right. I did know my worth. Finally. The weeks that followed were full and rich. The Foundation's international expansion launched successfully. Coal Logistics moved forward with the IPO process. Tyler and I settled into a rhythm that felt natural and right. And then, 6 weeks to the day after Malcolm had warned me, Brett Whitmore made his move. I was leaving the Foundation office late one evening when a car pulled up beside me. Brett stepped out. He looked older. Harder. Prison had aged him. Eden Ashford, he said. We need to talk. Malcolm was out of our security vehicle immediately, positioning himself between us. Mr. Whitmore, you're violating your parole by approaching Ms. Ashford. I'm on a public street. I have every right to be here. What do you want, Brett? I asked, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I want you to know that I'm not done. 18 months in prison gave me a lot of time to think. To plan. You took everything from me, my reputation, my freedom, my future. No. You did that to yourself when you hired someone to threaten my children. I was trying to protect the natural order. Men like Adrian built this world. Women like you are destroying it. The natural order where men commit fraud and abuse their families with no consequences? That order needed destroying. Brett smiled coldly. You think you've won. You think because you have your foundation and your boyfriend and your precious babies that you're safe. But you're not. I'm going to spend every day of my freedom reminding you what happens to women who forget their place. Malcolm stepped forward. That's a direct threat. I'm calling the police. Call them. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just stating facts. Brett looked at me one more time. This isn't over, Eden. Not by a long shot. He got back in his car and drove away. I stood there shaking, adrenaline flooding my system. We need to file for a restraining order, Malcolm said immediately. Do it. And Malcolm? I want full surveillance on him. I want to know everywhere he goes, everyone he talks to, everything he plans. Already on it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Brett's words. About the hatred in his eyes. About the threat he represented. Tyler came over when I called him, finding me sitting in the dark living room at 2 a.m. Talk to me, he said, sitting beside me. What if I can't protect them? What if Brett finds a way to hurt my children? What if everything I've built comes crashing down because I dared to stand up for myself? Then we rebuild. Together. But Eden, you can't live in fear of what might happen. Brett is one man. You have an army of people who love you and support you. He's a man with nothing to lose. Those are the most dangerous kind. And you're a woman with everything to fight for. That makes you more dangerous than he could ever be. Tyler stayed the night, holding me while I finally slept. And when I woke up in the morning, I made a decision. I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't letting Brett Whitmore make me afraid. Instead, I called a press conference. The room was packed with journalists, cameras, and curious onlookers. I stood at the podium wearing a red power suit, my head high. Thank you all for coming. I have a statement to make about Brett Whitmore and the ongoing harassment I've faced from men who believe powerful women are a threat to their existence. The room went silent. Brett Whitmore was released from prison 6 weeks ago after serving 18 months for conspiracy and intimidation. Last night, he approached me outside my office and made it clear that he intends to continue his campaign of harassment. He believes that I, and women like me, need to be put back in our place. I paused, looking directly at the cameras. I want Brett and every man like him to hear this. There is no putting me back. There is no place you've designated for me that I'm willing to occupy. I am a billionaire. I am a mother. I am a business leader. I am a philanthropist. I am a woman who refuses to be diminished, threatened, or controlled. Cameras flashed. Journalists scribbled notes. The Eden Ashford Foundation exists because women have been systematically undermined, financially abused, and professionally sabotaged for generations. Men like Brett Whitmore see our liberation as their oppression. They see our success as their failure. They're terrified of a world where women have power equal to their own. I leaned forward. Good. They should be terrified. Because we're not going back. We're not staying quiet. We're not accepting crumbs when we deserve the whole feast. And if that threatens your power, your status, your ego, that's a you problem, not a we problem. The room erupted with questions, but I held up my hand. One more thing. I'm announcing a new initiative. The foundation will now provide free security services for any woman being harassed or threatened for standing up for herself. No woman should have to live in fear because she dared to be powerful. More applause. More questions. That's all I have to say. Thank you. The press conference went viral within hours. Hashtag I'm not going back started trending on social media. Women sharing their own stories of harassment, discrimination, and threats. Men, the good ones, publicly supporting the movement. And Brett Whitmore? He went silent. Because standing up to a woman alone was one thing. Standing up to a movement of thousands was another. 3 months later, I stood in a courtroom watching Brett be sentenced to an additional 2 years for violating parole and making terroristic threats. Ms. Ashford, the judge said, "Do you have anything you'd like to say before I pass sentence?" I stood. Yes, Your Honor. I want Mr. Whitmore to know that he didn't break me. He didn't silence me. He didn't put me back in any place. All he did was prove why the work I'm doing is necessary. Thank you. Brett was led away in handcuffs. As he passed me, he hissed, "This isn't over." Yes, I said calmly. It is. 6 months later, on a perfect spring afternoon, I stood in a beautiful garden watching Tyler propose to my mother. Wait, no. That came out wrong. I stood in a beautiful garden with my mother, my children, Adrian and Rachel, Margaret, and about 50 close friends and family, watching Tyler get down on one knee. "Eden Ashford," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "You are the strongest, smartest, most terrifying woman I've ever met. You inspire me every day to be better, to do more, to give back. I love you. I love your children. I love the life you're building. And I would be honored if you'd let me build that life with you as your husband." Morlan, who is now 2.5 and very opinionated, shouted, "Say yes, Mama." The crowd laughed. I cried. And I said yes. Not because I needed Tyler. Not because I couldn't survive alone. But because I wanted to build something with someone who saw me, valued me, and never once tried to diminish me. The wedding was small, intimate, and perfect. Adrian walked me down the aisle, which surprised some people, but made sense to us. He'd been part of my journey, part of my transformation. And he was the father of my children, which made him family in a complicated but real way. "You deserve this," he whispered as we walked. "All the happiness in the world." "So do you," I replied, nodding toward Rachel, who was dabbing her eyes in the front row. Tyler and I wrote our own vows. Mine went like this. Tyler, you saw me when I was hiding. You supported me when I was fighting. You celebrated me when I was winning. You never once asked me to be smaller, quieter, or less than I am. You're my partner in every sense of the word. And I promise to love you, challenge you, and build something beautiful with you for the rest of our lives. The reception was at the Riverside Hotel, the same place where I'd given my truth-telling speech 2 years earlier. But this time, instead of facing down enemies, I was celebrating with friends. Patricia gave a toast about how I'd revolutionized coal logistics. Melissa from the bakery gave a toast about how the foundation had changed her life. My mother gave a toast about watching her daughter transform from a woman hiding from her power into a force of nature. And Adrian, surprisingly, gave a toast too. I was the biggest fool in the world, he said, looking directly at me. I had everything and I threw it away because I was too insecure to appreciate it. But Eden did something extraordinary. She didn't just survive my betrayal. She used it to become someone even more amazing than she already was. And she gave me the chance to become someone better too. Tyler, you're a lucky man. Don't screw this up like I did. The crowd laughed, but I saw the sincerity in Adrian's eyes. He'd really changed. We'd all changed. As Tyler and I danced our first dance, I looked around at the life I'd built. The children playing with their father and soon-to-be stepfather, working together to keep them entertained. The foundation staff celebrating our victories. The women I'd helped rebuilding their lives. The man I loved holding me close. What are you thinking? Tyler asked. I'm thinking about how different my life could have been. If I'd stayed hidden. If I'd accepted being thrown away. If I'd let men like Brett and Dominic intimidate me into silence. But you didn't. No, I didn't. And look what happened. You changed the world. Or at least, you started to. We're just getting started, I corrected. The foundation. Your VC fund. The movement we're building. This is just the beginning. Good. I'd hate to peak this early. Later that night, after the guests had left and the triplets were asleep at my mother's house, Tyler and I stood on the balcony of our hotel suite looking out at the city. Mrs. Richardson, he said, testing out my new name. Ms. Ashford Richardson, I corrected. I'm keeping my name. Adding yours. I wouldn't expect anything less. Are you sure you're ready for this? 3 toddlers, a wife who works 80 hours a week, and enemies who'd love to see us fail. I've never been more ready for anything. He pulled me close. Besides, I like a challenge. You're going to get one. My phone buzzed with a notification. An email from the foundation. Work can wait, Tyler said. I know. But I want to check this one thing. It was from a woman named Sarah in Ohio. She'd left an abusive marriage with her 2 children and nothing else. She'd applied for foundation support and had just sent an update. I got the job, she wrote. The one your career counselor helped me prepare for. I start Monday. For the first time in 10 years, I'm going to have my own bank account. My own money. My own life. Thank you for giving me hope when I had none. I showed Tyler the email, blinking back tears. This is why, I said. This is why all of it was worth it. The fight. The pain. The public battles. Because now Sarah has hope. And Melissa has her bakery. And hundreds of other women have lives they built for themselves. You did that. We did that. Me, you, everyone who supports the foundation. Everyone who believes women deserve power and safety and freedom. Then let's keep doing it. For Sarah and Melissa and all the women who come after them. I kissed my husband and thought about the journey that had brought me here. From the hidden billionaire playing housewife to the woman standing in her power, changing lives, building movements. It hadn't been easy. It hadn't been clean. There had been casualties and complications and moments when I'd wanted to give up. But I hadn't given up. I'd fought back. I'd stood up. I'd refused to be diminished. And in doing so, I'd shown my daughters and countless other women that you don't have to accept being thrown away. You don't have to stay small to make others comfortable. You don't have to hide your power to be loved. You can be brilliant and powerful and successful and still be worthy of love. Still be a good mother. Still be happy. The world tried to teach me otherwise. Adrian tried to punish me for being more than he expected. Brett and Dominic tried to destroy me for challenging their power. They all failed. Because I was Eden Ashford. Billionaire. Mother. Wife. Philanthropist. Force of nature. And I was done apologizing for any of it. Epilogue. 5 years later, Moreland stood on stage at the Foundation's annual gala, 7 years old and fearless, reading from a speech she'd written herself. My mom says that being powerful isn't about being mean or bossy. It's about knowing your worth and not letting anyone make you feel small. My mom is the most powerful person I know. And when I grow up, I want to be just like her. I sat in the audience next to Tyler, holding hands, crying proudly. Caleb and Zara sat with their father Adrian and stepmother Rachel, all of them beaming. The foundation had helped over 10,000 women in 5 years. We'd opened offices in 12 countries. We'd changed laws, held corporations accountable, and created a movement that was still growing. Coal Logistics had gone public and was now valued at over $4 billion. Adrian served on the board and ran his nonprofit, which had taught coding to over 50,000 kids. Brett Whitmore was still in prison and would be for years to come. Dominic Hartwell had lost everything and was a cautionary tale in business schools about what happens when greed trumps integrity. And me? I was happy, building a life with a partner who valued me. Raising children who knew their mother was strong. Running a foundation that changed lives every single day. After Moreland's speech, a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 23. Ms. Ashford? I'm Amanda Chadwick. I'm a business student, and I just wanted to say, your story changed my life. I was in a relationship where my boyfriend kept telling me I was too ambitious. That I should focus on supporting his career instead of building my own. Your example gave me the courage to leave. And now I'm starting my own company. That's incredible, Amanda. What kind of company? Tech platform connecting women entrepreneurs with mentors and funding. Inspired by your foundation. I smiled. The world needs that. When you're ready to launch, reach out to the foundation. We might be able to help. Really? That would be thank you. Thank you so much. After she walked away, Tyler pulled me close. You're still changing lives. Every single day. We all are. That's the point. It's not about one woman being powerful. It's about all of us lifting each other up. Moreland ran over, launching herself into my arms. Did I do good, Mama? You did amazing, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you. I meant what I said. I want to be like you when I grow up. Then be brave. Be kind. Be strong. And never, ever let anyone make you feel like you have to choose between being powerful and being loved. You can be both. I know, Mama. You show me every day. I held my daughter close and looked around at the life I'd built from the ashes of my worst moment. At the family I'd created. At the movement I'd started. At the future I was shaping. Adrian had tried to throw me away because I was a burden. He'd thrown away the woman who would change the world. And every woman who came after me would know, when someone tries to diminish you, when someone tries to control you, when someone thinks they can discard you without consequences, you stand up. You fight back. You show them exactly what they lost. And you build something so beautiful, so powerful, so transformative that they spend the rest of their lives regretting the day they underestimated you. That was my story. But more importantly, it was becoming the story of thousands of women who refused to accept being small. And that was just the beginning. Thank you for following Eden's journey from the moment her billionaire husband kicked her and their triplets out, to the powerful mogul who took back her life and changed the world. If you enjoyed this story, Please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this, and share this with someone who needs to hear that they don't have to accept being diminished.